and affecting the water quality in the water quality of our lake. Now, people that voted against the bond ordinance are not affiliated with Skyline Lakes, and neither Cupso or Erskine have a similar situation. And deeply disturbed that this happened. The other thing that concerns me, if you're in the financial committee, which I was part of for many years, and you come to an agreement, and then you come out to council session and vote in an opposite way, that's crazy. You should voice your opinion during the committee meeting. I think it's unethical, and the person who voted in the opposite direction, I would call for their resignation and also removal from the finance committee. Now, we have effluent from the James Drive treatment plant flowing down High Mountain Brook. It hits upper Skyline Lakes. Back in the early 80s, Skyline Lakes had to take action because there was raw sewage coming into Skyline Lakes from the James Drive treatment plant. Now the state is stating after 30 years, there's certain improvements that have to be made. And we can't even begin to talk about Princeton Hydro and their recommendations without first fixing the James Drive treatment plant. It's a bondable issue because it's a item that is repaired and goes on for multiple years. And it's just not a pay-as-you-go item.
That's about.
Excuse me?
Yeah, Jim, if you could start to wrap it up, because we're going to have a lot of people speaking, I'm sure.
Okay. And the only other thing is the radios for the police department. This is not something that's bought every year, and they need, for their safety in the towns, the most updated equipment. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Well, if you could state your name and address for the record, then unmute yourself. Ms. Tall, if you can unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Venka Tall, 24 High Point Lane. I just would like to ask what the update is on the 3 test wells at the quarry.
Mr. Heck, do you have?
I'll update in my manager's report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
What was that?
He'll update it in his manager's report.
Okay, I hope the update includes the depth of the wells, and if they're not installed, the reason why. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Peterson, if you could just unmute yourself and give your name and address for the record.
Good evening. This is Sue Peterson, and I'm here with my husband, Dan Daly, 138 Cupsaw Drive. I have 2 questions. The first is for Mayor Schaefer. I'm I'm wondering why we are not having in-person town council meetings. We have COVID-19 safety procedures. Many people have been vaccinated, and I think it's very important that we can see each other's faces when we are speaking and know who's attending meetings of our neighbors and residents in Ringwood. Additionally, there are residents who may not be, especially tech savvy with Zooming, even though that may be a little hard to believe at this point, but also maybe do not have reliable internet service, or the funds to have reliable internet service. So I'm just wondering when in-person meetings will resume. I think it's very important to be able to communicate effectively, to see each other's faces and be in a room together. My second question is, it's my understanding there is a political sign ordinance, and I'm very concerned that there are still political signs for the 2020 presidential election still posted on some residents of Ringwood's lawns, and in particular for former candidate and President Trump. What I want to express here has nothing to do with if you're Republican or Democrat. Trump made many racist comments and statements throughout his presidency, and I'm very concerned that what he represents to people of color, indigenous people, and Black people in our community, how that may be affecting them, to see this being, essentially communicated. And as I understand it, there's an ordinance, and it's over 7 days since the 2020 election. So if you could please respond, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. Oh, Dan?
Yeah, this is Dan Daly, resident at the same address. And I'd just like to piggyback on that topic, to the extent that we have put political signs on our lawn for the last 20 years. And whether our candidates won or lost, we removed those signs within the time limit determined by that ordinance. I think it is preposterous that the town is not enforcing that ordinance right now, and it is really stretching credibility to say that it's a Republican candidate whose signs are still being displayed when the council is majority Republican. Why you do not take action to have those signs removed right now is a statement to us that you're afraid to offend the people who actually put you and kept you in office. The ordinance is there. You may say that it could be challenged in court, but in order for it to be challenged in court, you have to enforce it, and you have not enforced it. Not only that, at least one residence that I drive by every day has a flag for the candidate who lost in November that has profanity on it. Now, maybe you think it's okay for our children to be going by that house every day on a school bus and see those words. but according to your own ordinance, it is not. Those signs need to be removed. And if you don't enforce this ordinance, you are essentially capitulating to Republican supporters who have no sense of fair play or have no interest in civic fair practice. Your ordinance is a good one. We've always followed it. Please continue to enforce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Your questions will be answered during the manager's report and the mayor's report. Thank you. Mr. Heck, anyone else?
Yes, there's quite a few, Mayor. Ms. Kennedy, if you could just unmute, there you go.
Yeah, Robin Kennedy, 310 Lakeview. I'm glad I'm following Sue and Dan because I was ready to address the same thing, which I have addressed many times before. But interestingly enough, this week in Roselle Park, a municipal judge ruled that a Roselle Park homeowners anti-Biden flags needed to come down because they were obscene. And I've, of course, said many times, in particular, there's a flag that hangs on Cupsaw Ave, a block down from Ryerson, a few houses down from Cupsaw Market where the kids hang out all the time. And this judge specifically commented that it was near a school. And to quote him, this is not a case about politics. It is a case pure and simple about language. This ordinance does not restrict political speech. Neither this town or its laws may abridge or eliminate this person's freedom of speech. However, freedom of speech is not simply an absolute right. It is clear from state law and statutes that we cannot simply put up the umbrella of the First Amendment and say everything and anything is protected speech. So I've asked many times for at least, if you're not going to do anything about the political signs, which it doesn't seem that you are, at least observe, at least let there be consequences for the people that are violating the profanity part of your sign ordinance. I'm not sure why people bother doing an ordinance if you're not going to actually issue summonses or have consequences for people who violate the ordinance. And in this particular case, it's been up there many times. I won't even say that those people had a Confederate flag up, which clearly tells us they're not sure where they live, since New Jersey was not on the side of the Confederacy. But that same house has had the same sign with profanity in an incredibly visible part of our town. And it really has to come down. We have to stop saying we're a family-friendly lake community if we allow obscenity to hang on our property where all of our families can see them. So I'll ask again. It's 9 months since Election Day when the former president lost, and it's 6 months since the inauguration day when a new president was inaugurated. It's time for those signs to go. It's just time for those signs to go. So please take them down. Ask people nicely to take them down and then write them tickets. In this particular case, these people are going to face a $250 a day fine for every day they don't remove signs with profanity. And thank you.
Sando?
Yeah, Peter Sando, 24 High Point Lane. Just amusing here that there was a time when the public comment would spark some kind of a dialogue, with the council, a little discussion maybe between you all, at least. It's kind of weird that we have to wait until the very end of the meeting to hear Scott's explanation, or without any kind of follow-up. But we've been through that before. These new rules are ridiculous. What I'd like to say is, I know that there was COVID money that was brought to the borough, and I don't know, I don't see anywhere on the website where it explains what you did with it or what it covered. I don't know if the council members know about that. Also, I understand that there will be money for municipalities from the American Rescue Act coming up. And I want to know if the council has been, has calculated what we're going to get. And if you have a plan as to how you would allocate those funds, and perhaps that maybe they could solve some of the problems that we're facing now. And one more thing, and please take notes of these. I'd like to have some response on it. If I have to wait until the manager's report, I'll stay up. I work early in the morning in a restaurant, so it's a little tough. But the other thing is that I'm curious as to, I understand that the folks who live around the James Drive plant who are using that unit over there pay a substantial extra tax, which I believe is supposed to be for the maintenance and repair of that operation, maintenance and repair of that treatment plant. So I'm wondering why there isn't some kind of a rainy day fund that was put aside. I mean, where does that money go? Does it go into the general fund, or does it go into a specific line item? You know, I don't know, maybe the finance committee can answer that question or whatever. But I'm curious as to how much money it has accumulated and what you do with it. And that's all. Thank you. I'll see you later.
Inez?
Carolyn Vinus, 22 Joseph Lane. I'm sorry if this is, I guess I have to wait till the end to get these answers, but I was unable to attend the meeting on the bond ordinance, and I haven't been able to find a breakdown anywhere. So I'd like to know what are the breakdowns cost-wise for the 3 items, the treatment plant, the police radios, the library. I'd also like to know what the service fee costs are for the applications for the bond and any professional services that are incurred with the application of the bond, the interest of the bond over the life, and if there's a reduction of interest after a certain amount of payment down, and how the money from the people on James Drive that are paying in, how are they paying towards that cost in this bond ordinance? So do I have to wait till the end for all those things?
Yes.
And I'd also like to just say, I agree. I think we should be meeting in person. I mean, everybody's going to the store without masks on. I think it's clear if we could meet and at least wear a mask, there's no sense in us continuing with Zoom.
Thank you.
Ms. Geisel, if you could unmute yourself. Amy, are you there? If you can just unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record. Okay. Mr. Eversback?
Hello? Sorry.
If you could state your name and address for the record.
Richard Eversbach, 120 Upper Lake, UF. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
So regarding the bond, I heard some discussion. I got on a little bit late, so there were some no votes from the some people on the budget committee, and I think some other comments regarding that surrounding grant or usage of grant money. Is there any specific or solutions, like numbers, or are we just hyperbole, oh, we need to use grant money, or do you actually have a balanced budget that would supersede or really answer or address your concerns with the previous one? That's it, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Verbacki?
Paul Rubacki, 99 Edward Drive. I'm speaking tonight as an individual, not as any individual, as an individual, not in any capacity as a public official. I was a little dismayed over the what happened with the bond ordinance last month. I found it interesting that in the May meeting, Councilman Bolton, like on the introduction, specifically asked whether he was voting for the ordinance, whether the pass the ordinance, just the introduction. So it kind of gives me the impression there was something in the wind to not vote for that ordinance at that time. And it just kind of, in May, nobody's against it, but as closer we get to an election, all of a sudden people are trying to paint themselves as the guardian of the taxpayer dollar, where one of the people who's previously been the guardian of the water quality of Ringwood all of a sudden doesn't care about what happens in Skyline Lakes. I live on Edward Drive, part of the sewer. My toilet will still flush, but I'm also a member of Skyline Lakes, and I know families down there and the kids are down there swimming, and I'm very concerned about the water quality. And also, this has seemed to have a negative impact on the real estate market in Ringwood Acres, because now if you're selling a house you've lived in for 30 years, people can't move out because this is jamming up the whole sewer thing. So it just, in the end, it just kind of looked like it was irresponsible. People, if they had concerns, they should have raised it to the Finance Council. I agree. If you're on the Finance Council and you had a problem, you should have raised it in the committee meeting. So with that, I expect better. It looks like now this is going to be a long, drawn out thing. As far as the people talking about the signs, if people are really upset about a sign, then just buck up and go to the police station and sign a complaint with your own name. If you believe the ordinance is legal, put your name on the line. Because the thing is, somebody cited this Roselle Park case. In 1971, the U.S. Supreme Court specifically said that the word that was involved in this Roselle Park case is not obscene. But you have a municipal judge who decides he knows more than the U.S. Supreme Court. That tells you how things go with local politics. It's a democratic town, so they'll do that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mayor, that there's nobody else with their hand raised. Oh, there is one. Hold on. Mr. Allen?
Yes, Herb Allen, 43 Seminole Drive in Ringwood, of course. I'm a little upset about the bond issue. The people that have voted against it are putting our first responders, especially the police, in a very bad situation. I live in Stonetown, as Stonetowners know that we don't have good coverage over here. I think you're hurting our community, especially the children. We have a very active ball field over here, and we do have hikers. We also have Monksville Dam. So I would stop playing politics and get this job done. We have to have good communication with our first responders. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there are a few more now, Mayor. So, Ms. Boyle, we'll try again.
Yes, thank you. Hi, it's Amy Boyle Geisel, 10 Juniper Terrace, Ringwood, New Jersey. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. If it's appropriate, I'd like to speak to ordinance number 2021-07. Right, that's later on in the agenda this evening. I think that's a relevant topic and I am against it. I want to draw your attention to the conflict in the existing federal law, which is 21 USC Section 801. According to the federal government, cannabis is still a Schedule I controlled substance. It's on the same level still as heroin and LSD and ecstasy. I realize that's not a major concern when we're talking about legislating locally, but it is a conflict directly. The New Jersey statute also raises conflicts locally with new businesses in terms of a cannabis distribution, manufacturing, because of conflicts with New Jersey banking law, also insurance law. It's going to be very difficult for that type of startup business to get credit, to work with a local bank, to work with a New Jersey insurer that will give officers and directors adequate insurance, liability insurance. I believe this is too soon, too early, and not well thought out at the state or the local level. Not disparaging any of your efforts, but I also believe it conflicts with interstate restrictions as people travel across New Jersey to other states. I'm also very concerned about local community impact. Both of my children were members of the group you will hear from later this evening, United for Prevention in Passaic County. My teenagers believe this will have a large community impact, right? We're already seeing vaping equipment at different local parks. We're talking about legislation where you open the door and you cannot restrict transportation or deliveries of cannabis products across Ringwood, across different parts of New Jersey. This, as a parent and a resident, raises alarms for me. Though I am not personally dead set against this in the future, I believe this opt-in period should be left alone. Let's wait. Let's do committee work on this. Let's plan this, right? I believe if you look at the legislation at the state level, New Jersey CREMA S21, there's no adequate enforcement operation procedures against minors. This is something my 16-year-old raised himself. There's no restrictions right now for the distribution of cannabis near schools, near daycare centers. This is all unique legislation that you, as a borough council, would have to create and put in place for this to be safe for Ringwood, right? The other concern here is where it's going, driving under the influence if we are distributing cannabis in town. There's just too many moving parts to this to get involved quickly without a well thought out long-term plan for Ringwood. One other concern I had at an earlier council meeting, with all due respect to all of you, because I know how hard you work to improve Ringwood, is if there's one local business driving this decision, put this on hold. You can opt in within the time frame, right? There could be a conflict of interest will be raised if there's one council member who has a potential business or a friend who's in the business and wants to get this legislation passed. I thank you very much for your consideration. I look forward to hearing the presentation from United for Prevention in Passaic. Think carefully on this one. This has long-term impacts for Ringwood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. On the comments on the ordinance, the cannabis ordinance, so a record is clear. While I think comments should be directed during that period.
Okay.
Okay. Although we have Ms. Geisel's statements on the record, they're part of the record, but we did want to keep everything within the ordinance itself. Okay, for a clear record.
Yes, thank
So
you.
everyone certainly has the right to speak on it.
Okay.
At that time.
Thank you. Mr. Health, anyone else?
There was some hands raised and then lowered. And is there anybody else that wants to speak at this point? Seeing no one, Mayor?
Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close public portion?
So moved.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Schaefer? Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton,
Yes.
Moretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
I'm gonna change things up a little tonight. I've had several calls from residents since our June meeting concerning the bond ordinance in regard to the library, James Drive treatment plants, road repairs, and the police radios. So, Mr. Heck, if you don't mind, could you please give your manager's report at this time? And then we'll go on with our regular agenda.
Mayor, before we go to the manager's report, would we be able, as council members, to respond to some of the comments this evening?
You can respond to them during the mayor and council.
I think that's inappropriate. We just heard from the public. Shouldn't we have the ability to respond, especially when they spoke directly to each of us?
Not at this time. I'm going to have the manager give his report first.
Okay, then we can do it?
No, and then during the council, mayor and council reports, you can give it then. Mr.
That's irresponsible.
Mayor, so you want me to do the whole report now? So
No, well, do part of it, and then later on you can answer the questions that were.
well, some of these questions that were raised will be part of my manager's report. So I guess just bear with me here while I adjust my. Threw me a curveball, Mayor. Sorry. Okay. So I think the best way for me to start my manager report is by responding to some of the issues that were raised at the last council meeting. I'll try to address the issues raised by specific council members if I can, and I'll address the bond funding and the concerns I have, as well as some of the repercussions that I think we're exposed to as that after the last meeting as well. So I'll try and go through this as quickly as I can. Grants. At the last meeting, Councilperson O'Keefe asked me to pursue a community project funding grant available through Congressman Gottheimer's office. And we did do that. We have applied for the federal community project grant. That's what the bike and pedestrian bridge over Erskine Road and Erskine Creek and Skyline Drive was applied for that funding. And I know she brought it up the last meeting for some of the items in the bond list, but the guidelines clearly state that the time to apply is April 16th. That's the deadline for those grants. So we can't apply for that at this point. It was also suggested that I put together a vision on how we can expend the American Rescue dollars. But I kind of felt that we had a bond ordinance that we worked on for the last 2 or 3 years, and the Finance Committee had laid out a plan over the last 2 years, and some of those members did vote no. And I haven't had any communication from them giving me any guidance as to what their plan was on those projects. So I'm not sure that me putting the vision together when the council as a whole voted against their own vision is going to be fruitful. I mean, I'll certainly help. I'll do what I can, but I could use some input on that. Relative to the American Rescue Plan, it also was mentioned. The American Rescue Plan rules have not been finalized yet. They're interim final rules at this point. They're still having hearings on that actual grant. At that meeting, it was stated that we were receiving over $1 million. Actually, this year we received $638,373.51. And I think you have 4 or 5 years to spend that money. Reviewing the American Rescue Plan, the act would not cover the cost for the library. The act would not cover the cost for emergency services communication. The act will not cover paving for Pinewood Drive, LeBon, Fox Hill Lanes, Stonewall Court, Fieldstone Drive, Black Rock Terrace. And I also want to caution everybody that if we use the full $638,000 to pay for a third of the sewer plant as an option, that was one of the things that was suggested, it wouldn't complete the project. It wouldn't leave any money for water pumps to be upgraded. And hopefully we're not going to need to have any kind of health response. But if we spend all the funds in the American Rescue Act, which is for, economic and health issues, we won't have any funding for any health response going forward. And we all are aware that there are some issues that are creeping up right now. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of it here. I was also asked to call Passaic County and apply for their grants. So I did. I called Passaic County and I asked them for each of the items that were in the bond ordinance, if they could either direct me to the department or give me the application to apply for those grants. And I was advised that the county has no grants for any of the items that were mentioned in any of our projects. Was also suggested that some of the money can go for a septic pumping ordinance, and that is not an authorized use in the American Rescue Plan. However, sewer plants is, sewer infrastructure is. So that's the grants discussion from the last meeting. Emergency service communication upgrade. It's kind of a fallacy that this is a police department upgrade, because it's not. This is for all of the public. Emergency service communication is for all of our emergency services, as well as for the residents when they need assistance. Included in the 2021 bond, item number B was funding for improving our emergency services radio coverage throughout our community. In April 2019, we started documenting radio issues, and since that time, we have over 170 separate reports documenting issues with radio communication. These issues typically include difficult transmission and receiving radio transmission issues. The issues vary from heavy static to poor reception, where multiple attempts have to be made to transmit and receive. At times, there's no communication, and where our responders are forced to go back to their vehicles or use their vehicle radio or cell phone to speak to dispatch. We've discussed the radio communication system quite a few times, and our radio communication system has areas in the town which are not covered well, which slow response to our residents puts the emergency responders in jeopardy. If we don't have the ability to get help when we need it, if we don't have the ability to get ambulance when we need it, or whatever the case may be, that's problematic for our residents. I'm not going to read the whole 170-page list, but I'm going to read you a few examples. In Cupsaw, these are all within the last year. In Cupsaw, medical call involving an unresponsive man with a head trauma who ended up needing to be medevaced. Officers on the scene were unable to check with dispatch on the status of the ambulance. First responder on the scene was unable to communicate with dispatch and the responding officers about additional resources needed. Stonetown, officer had difficulty contacting dispatch to get an ambulance for an assault victim. In Cupsaw, medical call for a man having a heart attack. Once on the scene, the officers began CPR, but could not communicate with dispatch using the portable radios. Throughout the treatment of the patient, an officer had to return to his patrol vehicle multiple times to speak with responding EMS and dispatch. On Route 511, motor vehicle accident with serious injuries. Officers on the scene had difficulty using their portable radios to contact dispatch for a medevac helicopter. Another item that we've talked about, and we've talked about it certainly in committee, we have, and it's not something that I usually talk about at these meetings because it's not something you want to share all the time. But another item that we've discussed is that concerns me is more than one of our schools in our community where we have difficulties getting emergency communication out from within the building. Increasing our radio communication is for the safety of the public. When there are power outages in our community, people don't have cell phone service because their Wi-Fi is not working. Radio communication is a lifeline for our community. I'm not going to read some of the other stuff because we have quite a few public hearings, but let me go through the other things. But I think you get the point. Emergency service communication is important. Also in the bond ordinance is our library grant. I think it's pretty clear that we need to replace the roof and upgrade the heat and air conditioning system at the library. We've been talking about it for better part of 3 years. We worked with the library board and we applied for a grant. We were very successful. Resolution 2020-76 authorized me to apply for the grant. Resolution 2021-54 authorized me to file the due diligence for the grant on January 21st, 2021. Resolution 2021-95 authorized me to sign the agreement and agree to the terms and conditions. I'm going to read you a few of those conditions. 1.2a, the grant is conditioned on evidence of matching funds. If the grantee fails to expend the required matching funds, the grantor may terminate the grant agreement. 1.2b, the obligation of the grantee to provide matching funds and to perform its obligation under the grant agreement shall be absolute and unconditional. 1.3a4, if the project is not substantially completed 12 months after the construction completion date set forth in the application, the grant can be rejected. You know, the DCA, as we talk about all the time, requires us, the CFO, to certify the funds are available before we enter into contract for work. So we have to have the money in hand before we can hire these vendors to do this project. The AC equipment has a 4-month lead time, and replacing the heat and air conditioning unit in the winter is not really an option. The first report for the grant is due to tell us the status August 1st, 2021. We're gonna have to do some creative writing. Failing to appropriate the necessary funds puts this project and the $292,750 grant in jeopardy. We planned that this project so that we could schedule it to fit with the building use to some degree. We tried to, you know, it's going to be closed down for 2 or 3 weeks. I got ahead of myself here. It says we need to close down for 2 to 3 weeks while the work goes on. So what Debbie and I have done is we've gone through all of our budgets here. We've frozen some accounts and we've moved funding from other budgets so that we can order the necessary equipment, because it takes 4 months. The timing of the grant was so that we could order the equipment and get this project moving forward. But with the bond not passing, there is a delay. Another repercussion of this equipment that will likely arrive late October, early November, resulting in finding another location to house our election, which is complicated, and it also causes unnecessary confusion for our residents. We have several polling places there, but it's likely to fall right in that time period. So we're not going to have a lot of options. We have to have cranes, but we're definitely going to be closing the library down for a couple of weeks when they replace the roof and they put the units up on top, because there's going to be cranes and a lot of activity. So that's the library grant. And again, I'm only going to read you the summaries. People brought up the James Drive plant. This has been going on for quite some time, and we've talked about it quite a bit. Bond ordinance 2021-08, an ordinance did not pass to upgrade the plant, as you all are aware. As you're also aware, Ringwood was put on notice of significant non-compliance April 2020 through 10/2020 for phosphorus and copper. We submitted plans to DEP. We submitted a schedule to EPA stating that we would go out to bid June of 2021. We would contract in June 2021 through August of 2021 to do the work. And without funding, I can't complete that obligation or commitment to the EPA as outlined in our correspondence of February 10th, 21. And this correspondence was based on the Council Finance Committee's plan to fund the project. By way of background, James Drive wastewater plant was built and given to the Borough Sewage Authority in 1967 by the developer. The plant was upgraded in 1988, or about 33 years ago. Wastewater plants are mainly equipment, you know, not much different than your car. They're just they move water around and whatnot. Since the upgrade in 1988, Ringwood has replaced the following equipment in addition to routine maintenance. We installed new air header and valves the entire length of the plant. We replaced all the aeration diffusers. We replaced the failed lift station pumps. We replaced the grinder pumps. We replaced the dosing tank pumps. We replaced the chemical feed pumps, repaired the clarifier, installed new float meters and piping, replaced the UV system, installed new gas service to the building, and installed new gas generator, and we replaced the pump controls and rewired. Modernization of the plant will bring efficiency, which will reduce maintenance costs. Modernization of the plant will also make it more effective and certainly more environmentally friendly. Modernization will also allow 15 homes in that service area to hook up. If the 15 homes hook up at $1,200 a year, which is what their current yearly fee is, it would generate an additional $18,000 of income per year to put towards the upgrades. If you amortize those 15 properties over the life of the bond, that amounts to $540,000 in additional revenues to pay the bond down. If you include connection fees to the sewer plant, which anybody that's not connected have to buy into the connection fees for those 15 users, at which point now it's $7,500 to connect. It would likely to be higher than that due to escalation costs. But at the current price, $7,500, that would raise an additional $112,500 to the infrastructure pavements. A very important aspect of upgrading this plant will be the water quality improvement of Skyline Lakes, which is downstream of the treatment plant. The council has been on the record to do everything they can to improve the quality of our lakes. Upgrading the plant that we own would have a huge impact on Skyline Lakes and all of its 440 members. If the plant is not upgraded, we are very likely to see fines and penalties. I mentioned that last meeting when we were talking about the bond, that we're under orders by the DEP and the EPA to make repairs. So hopefully we can resolve that funding soon. Skyline booster pump. That was a separate bond ordinance because water is separate, because only the water users pay for that the town does not. Last year, we had an emergency situation. We replaced one of the 325 horsepower pumps at Skyline Station that provide water to the entire system. The pumps are all the same age. The two remaining pumps are in series with the replaced pump, and they go on together when there's a demand for increased amount of water to send more water up the hill to our tank on Skyline Drive. The plan was to replace the two remaining pumps to be proactive so that we could provide water during peak demand times, especially in the summer. So this was proactive instead of reactive. It should be noted that from 6/20 of 2020 to 6/30 of 2021, the secondary pumps failed to start when called by the computer 78 times, and these pumps really need to be addressed. We provided $152,000 in that bond for the pumps in the water system to be upgraded. So I guess to close on that aspect of the meeting, after 2 years of planning and putting together a funding program to address the needs outlined in the bond, all of these items included in the bond are items that need to be addressed. It's certainly not the total list. We submitted, Debbie, who was on the call, the CFO, and I submitted a capital list of items to the Finance Committee to review, and they decided what would be funded and what was most important and when. Based upon their recommendations, we introduced the budget and the bond ordinance to be reflective of their plan. With the bond ordinance failing at this point, we're going to need some input to figure out how we're going to possibly move these projects forward, because we do not have the money in the budget to do it, because it was all going to be done in the bond ordinance itself. I don't know how much of my manager report you want to go through. Do you want me to?
No.
Some of the stuff that we talked about earlier. Let me go through the list here. I did take notes.
Mr. Peck, if you want to wait until the end, since we have a guest speaker here.
Okay.
Under new old business, and then
whatever you want to do.
Mayor, I'd like to respond to some of the report that the town manager just gave.
Okay, if you could please wait until council.
Is this a council meeting or the town manager meeting? Seriously, we can't talk to the public, and now we can't talk to the town manager?
You will.
It just doesn't seem like it's good to delay these responses. Many of the public still won't be online, and they won't hear it until after they have a chance to respond in the second portion.
I'm going on to old business right now, Councilman O'Keefe.
Okay, so there's no opportunity for anyone on the council to speak to what the manager just said. Is that what you're saying, Mayor?
No, I'm not saying that. You're putting words in my mouth. You will speak.
Well, then can I speak?
No, not now.
When?
I would say point of order. The mayor is saying that we will have the opportunity to speak in a little while.
Mayor.
I think we all heard what the mayor said. Can we please move on with the meeting? Thank you.
She's the mayor.
Yes, she is an appointed mayor, not an elected mayor, and she is one of equals, Ms.
Regardless of what it is.
Very disruptive at this.
She runs this.
Go right ahead. I will defer to the mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Klimek, old business, please.
Okay, yes, members of the mayor and members of the council, we're at that point now in the agenda on the cannabis ordinance. To give you some background and to give the public background, to reiterate it, at the last council meeting, an ordinance was introduced which basically prohibited any cannabis activities, whether it's retail, cultivation, manufacturing, sale in any part of the municipality, except there is a proviso that in the industrial zone, certain cannabis related activities would be allowed. Okay. However, it was also provided that the retail sale would not be permitted in any section of the municipality, whether it's the industrial zone or the residential zone or any other zone. So what the ordinance provided for was that the permitted cannabis activities would only be in the industrial sector. They would not be in residential zones, commercial zones, neighborhood business zones, only in that one particular area. That ordinance passed at first reading. According to the land use law, though, it's a zoning ordinance. Zoning ordinance has to go to the planning board, and the planning board's obligation is to submit a report to the council, advising the council so whether or not the planning board thinks that the proposed ordinance is within the parameters of the master plan. Now, when the planning board gets it, they are not ruling on the merits of the ordinance. They're just ruling as to whether or not the provisions are within the scope of the master plan. I can give you an example. If the council wanted to put a certain use in a certain district, even if all the members of the planning board didn't like that use, if it was within the parameters of the master plan, then they would submit a favorable recommendation. In this case, the planning board considered the ordinance and did not submit a favorable recommendation. They submitted a report. Well, the report was submitted and authorized by Mr. Jameson Van Eck, their attorney, and you can see the report. It was submitted to you, stated June 16, 2021. And the planning board states its reason why they do not think this is within the land use element of the master plan. You also have the report of Jessica Caldwell of J. Caldwell and Associates. She is the planning consultant, where she recommended and ruled that the proposed ordinance was within the scope and objectives of the master plan. In any event, in such a situation, when the planning board does not make the recommendation, it is for the council to proceed. The council can overrule that recommendation. It does not have to accept it, but the council has to set forth reasons as to why it does not accept that recommendation. I have submitted a resolution for your consideration as a model for discussion. You don't have to follow it. Just to get a discussion. It's 2021-154. Since the council did pass it at first reading, this resolution would in fact overrule the recommendations, disapprove the recommendations and termination of the planning board, and the reasons therefore are stated. Basically, the reasons follow the reasoning of the consultant, Ms. Jessica Caldwell. Now, what the procedure would be as follows, Mayor and council members, that your first action and discussion would be on the resolution. Okay. If you determine to pass the resolution as submitted, which does not follow the recommendations of the planning board, then you would consider the ordinance itself. This would be second reading after the public hearing. You get all the input and then you would make your decision. If you, however, do not vote for the resolution, it's your right. If you're of the opinion that the planning board was correct for whatever reason, then you cannot pass that ordinance, because you can only pass the ordinance if that's your desire. If that's your desire, you can only pass that ordinance if you disapprove and disagree with the recommendations of the planning board. Now, if you'd like, you can take, this can be taken in two phases. One phase, you could, persons on the board, on the council could, for instance, say, well, I will vote for the resolution. I think that the proposed uses are within the scope of the master plan, but I don't think when it comes to the ordinance, I don't think we should pass it, okay? So it's two things. In the first instance, the resolution, you're not really ruling on the merits of whether it's a good or bad idea. You're just ruling on whether or not it's within the contemplation of the master plan. If you do rule that it's within the contemplation of the master plan, then you get into the ordinance, which after discussion, you will make your determination. Okay. Again, the ordinance, by the way, just for the record, I think I did explain to the other, when it was introduced, that we have until August 21 to take a final action. If we take no action, okay, we are without any rights of control to prohibit the various operations of cannabis, manufacture, sale, etc. To reiterate, the ordinance as you introduced does not permit the retail sale in any district of the municipality, and any activity, any operational activities are confined to the industrial zone. Any questions before you proceed in discussion of 2021-154?
Wait a minute.
Yes.
We let Mrs. Schultz do her presentation first before we do
I'm
this?
sorry, I didn't hear you, Mayor.
Can we let the guest speaker that we have here, Mrs. Schultz, give her presentation first?
That's up to you and the board and the council.
I guess we could let her give her presentation first before we vote on any of it.
So, or you could, it's certainly up to you. Normally, you do not have a special comment period on a resolution, but you can amend the agenda as the council seems fit, and the presiding officer, you, Mayor, can so rule. And if the council has any objections, they can vote to overrule it.
What is
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What is the pleasure of the council? They want to hear this presentation first?
We have somebody lined up who's planning to speak on it. I think we should hear them out first.
Right.
I agree with Councilman Bolton. I think she should have been here in May prior to our first vote. I know that she had reached out to us earlier, and I was sorry that she was delayed in get here. I guess there was a conflict in your schedule, but welcome. And yes, I think she's been holding on long enough, and we should let her have her say.
All right.
McCracken, I'd like to make a motion that we allow the speaker to speak now.
Right.
I would second that.
Okay, second, to amend the agenda to allow the person to speak at this time on the ordinance, on the resolution, and I presume on the ordinance while they're at it.
Have a motion.
I think there was a motion. I don't know if there was a second.
Jamie, did you second?
I seconded it. Yes, I did.
Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer? Deputy Mayor Spear? Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Matty Landis?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
And Spear?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor, I have already given her access to share her screen. So whenever you're ready, you guys can begin.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mayor Schaefer and all council members for allowing us this time to present to you. I just want to give you a heads up. We have 3 additional speakers on tonight. So if you can just unmute them somehow. It's going to be Vanessa Apaza.
Hold on, Vanessa.
Okay, they're going to raise their hands so that they.
That's easier. If they come to the tip.
So they will all raise their hands, and then, yes, they should have all done that now. So I will share my screen.
You want me to bring them in at this point or
yes, they can.
one?
They can come on. Yes, they know when to speak. So you should all be seeing my screen right now. Here we go. Okay.
Oh, hold on. You're going to have to bring them in because you did that too quick.
Oh, should I stop share?
Yes. Let me bring them all in first.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they should all be in. Do they need?
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Okay, there you go.
All right.
Now you can go ahead.
Okay. Just make sure I have the video clip. Yes. Okay. Okay, so good evening, everyone, members of the public. Welcome to our short presentation. We don't want to take too much of your time this evening. It is titled The Impact of Marijuana in Our Community. And before I get started, I just want to make a statement that we are here today only to educate and create awareness around the issues of marijuana as we see them unfolding in your community. It is our hope that you walk away from this presentation with some insights into some of the actions that you can take to keep your community safe as it relates to marijuana and our youth. So the presentation will be conducted by the following: Captain Ralph Dana of the Passaic Police Department, Vanessa Apaza of the Passaic City Coalition, and Robin Galino of Clifton and the Wayne Municipal Alliance. I probably didn't do this, but I am Shireen Schultz with United for Prevention in Passaic County. I am the director, and we are a county-wide coalition based out of William Patterson University. So for tonight, we're going to tell you what marijuana looks like now and what it looked like then, and compare the THC levels. We're going to talk about the marijuana bill in a very brief summary, and then look at the community impact that marijuana is going to have. We're going to have a little closer look at advertising, which I believe was mentioned earlier. And then we're also going to see how this impacts our youth in your community. So to get us started this evening, I'm going to introduce you to Captain Ralph Dana.
All right, good evening, council members, mayor, members of the public. Can I get a thumbs up if you guys can hear me? Just want to make sure I'm not talking for, got me? All right. So, we all know marijuana is a Schedule I substance under the Controlled Substances Act, which is based because mainly its high potential for abuse, the absence of an accepted medical use as a treatment, within the United States, and the lack of accepted safety for use due to its ability to cause physical or psychological dependence. A major distinction between present marijuana and the marijuana of past decades is mainly its potency and the THC content. So the THC is the main cannabinoid that can be found in the cannabis plant. Another main cannabinoid being cannabidiol or CBD. To illustrate the differences in potencies, the Woodstock weed, for instance, of the 70s, that contained around 3% THC level. Now, these potency levels slowly crept up throughout the 80s and 90s, but it was still only around 8% in the 2000s. By 2020, potency levels rose to around 15.8%. However, there are higher grades now that can even reach 20% THC level. And even still, hashish and hashish oil can be anywhere from 20 to 60% THC. And finally, now concentrates, they can be up to 40 to 80% THC level. There's even a compound THC-A, like alpha, for instance. It can isolate THC to reach a potency of 95 to 99%. They're being engineered, and this is a far cry from 3% in the 70s to 99% concentrated level, like in some cases. So you can see that there's some marijuana extracts in the next slide. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Those are some of the marijuana concentrates pictured there. They go by a slew of different names, but they're all very similar in that they're being processed to isolate that THC. There's no plants pictured here. Their process often uses hydrocarbons, butane, propane, other agents, very flammable agents that are part of this isolation process. They have many names. You can see some of them there. 710, butane honey, another name, hashish oil, hash oil, wax, earwax, dabs, dabbing, shatter. Shatter's the one on the bottom. It kind of looks like a glass-like property it takes on. So these concentrates tie right into what you're about to see on the left, where we have vaping cartridges. The vaping devices are the main way of ingesting some of these concentrates. Now, this should be a main takeaway for you. When these THC concentrates are vaped, it does not give off that distinct odor that we are all commonly familiar with that a marijuana cigarette, blunt, or bong, or pipe, water pipe would give off. That high potency, high smell of, you could tell you're smelling marijuana. In fact, to the contrary, a variety of different flavors and smells can be added to further mask that distinct and highly noticeable smell. So I spent a great deal personally myself as a police officer in the schools in Passaic, dealing with students and faculty alike, and I can tell you, I'm sure you already know all too well that these devices are in the schools, and the last thing you want is for a teacher not to know that students may be getting high right in front of them because they can't smell this, this odor. So now the dangers that come with the higher concentrations of THC include a greater exposure to marijuana's mind-altering and addictive ingredient. Their memory, pleasure, movement, thinking, coordination, concentration, sensory, and time perception, they're all affected. The National Institute of Health thinks that these are higher levels, may be attributed to the increase in emergency visits connected to marijuana, and that there may be a greater risk of addiction if people are regularly exposing themselves to these higher doses of the THC. CDC also has a term that they call E-Valley, which means e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury. So basically had to come up with a name for all of these injuries that they're seeing. As of February of 2020, a total of 2,807 people have been hospitalized or died in connection to E-Valley, these lung injuries. So now real quick, you can see at the bottom left of edibles, they take longer to digest the edibles, and products, they have like the same high, but it takes a longer time for you to ingest it and digest to get that high. Therefore, youth may consume a little more to feel the effect faster, thinking maybe the product wasn't working because they're used to that instant gratification they would get when they'd smoke or vape it. This obviously can increase the chance of dangerous results. Taken in larger doses, marijuana edibles can lead to anxiety attacks, paranoia, and hallucinations. Several case reports involving kids who took edibles found that respiratory insufficiency can also be a major side effect in young children. So edibles come in candy, cookies, ice cream. They're attractive to youth. Edibles also are designed to mimic tobacco products, like in the colors, bright colors, and packaging. So it's target marketing. That's really all I have right now. So I want to pass off now to the program coordinator for Passaic Coalition, Vanessa.
So the recreational marijuana bill CREMA passed on February 22nd. Municipalities have 180 days from this date to pass an ordinance to opt out or set rules and regulations on how these businesses will operate on their own. These 180 days are up on August 21st. After August 21st, municipalities cannot pass any such ordinance for 5 years and every 5 years thereafter. Municipalities who do not pass any type of ordinance will automatically opt in and must abide by the rules and regulations set by the state. Similarly, the New Jersey Regulatory Cannabis Commission also has until August 21st to pass additional rules and regulations that is currently not stated on the bill. There are 6 different types of licenses, which are cultivators, manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, retailers, and delivery services. Under the state law, no municipality can restrict transportation or deliveries of cannabis items to their residents. What this means is that if Ringwood were to opt out from all recreational marijuana operations, a Ringwood resident will still be able to purchase cannabis from a delivery service from any local township that does not have that does have a delivery license. And on the next slide, you will see that all marijuana ordinances passed prior to 2021 is absolutely null and void. The bill allows for indoor designated cannabis consumption areas, which are exempt from the Smoke-Free Air Act. Additionally, lodging establishments, including hotels and motels, will be allowed to use cannabis in up to 20% of its guest rooms. Minors will not be arrested for possession or use of marijuana and alcohol. And there will be a series of written warnings and referral to social services, as well as parent notification for offending minors under the age of 18 caught with marijuana or alcohol. Also not mentioned on the slide, but very important to note, home grow is absolutely prohibited in New Jersey. There is a gap in the bill that it has no restrictions on businesses operating near schools and facilities where youth gather, but municipalities can pass zoning ordinances, such as limiting the number of cannabis licenses there are in a municipality. For example, having only 1 license per 10,000 residents, or capping it at only 2 licenses max in the municipality. They can also limit the types of licenses allowed in the municipality, meaning those 6 licenses that I mentioned before. For example, prohibiting retail dispensaries, but allowing for wholesale and cultivator businesses. Municipalities can restrict the location, manner, and times of operation of the establishment. They can also limit the location of the business as long as they are in accordance with the municipal land use law. I've mentioned this before, but if no ordinance is passed, the state will allow cannabis businesses to operate in the industrial, commercial, and retail zones of the municipality. The picture that will show up on the slide soon demonstrates a zoning restriction passed by Michigan State that placed a 1,000-foot buffer around schools where no medicinal marijuana facility can be located, which is a safety measure they adopted to be in compliance with the Federal Drug-Free School Zone Act. As you know, even though recreational marijuana is legal statewide, it is still considered a federal crime, which does cause a lot of confusion. in terms of advertising. There are some gaps in the bill as it relates to advertising and youth. While the bill does not have a restriction on the bill does not have a restriction on advertising, the bill has a restriction on advertising within 200 feet of an elementary or secondary school, but it does not include recreation centers, parks, daycares, churches, or other facilities where youth may gather. The bill does require advertisers to show evidence that at least 71% of the audience is at least 21 years old, but that leaves a pretty heavy threshold of 28.4% of underage youth who can be exposed to advertisements. Advertising on TV and radio will only be allowed after 10 p.m., which will allow youth to still be exposed to these advertisements. If any of these advertising gaps are of concern to you and your community, there are things that can be added to the ordinances to add further protection, such as prohibiting advertising on billboards, on TV and radio, on print and digital communications. Municipalities can reduce that threshold of 28.4% to a smaller threshold, like 15%. That is all for my slides. I will pass this on to Robin Galino, coordinator from the Wayne and Clifton Municipal Alliance.
Thanks, everyone. I do appreciate the opportunity to address some of the information here. We do want to have you look at and bring your attention for consideration the community impact. I know that we all probably know, we've been talking for a while about the 2% expected income. So without the rules from the Cannabis Commission, which will be available after August deadline, these are some of the things we suggest you, your administration, and your legal team take a look at. That's 2% of, let's say, an average purchase, which is probably about $350. So that's about $7 you'll get per purchase. So the state and social justice fee, you've got about 70%, $350 purchase going to impact communities. And in Passaic County, that's going to be Passaic and Patterson. 15% of that purchase is going to go to underage deterrence and prevention. So we do see a little bit of prevention in that purchase. The remaining would fund police department programs to train drug recognition experts and fund the Cannabis Registry Commission. They have several members that are paid for the work that they're doing. So they'll be developing, regulating, and enforcing recreational and medical marijuana. So they will be administering their rules and regulations after the August deadline. It's important that we know that, so we're aware of what we're deciding on before anyone makes any decisions. We're just, as I said, looking at that breakdown. So the municipalities, again, just a reminder, that 2% tax, and what will it cost your municipality? So on the next slide, we're going to see some of the things that you might want to look into. How will your budget be affected? Will you require any budget revisions? So you want to take a look at that. Will you need additional officers? We do recommend that you look into drug recognition experts, adding that to your team. Loitering, will there be any type of loitering at warehouses or retail establishments? Will there be emergency calls for misuse, such as the edibles that we heard earlier, that some people don't have the patience to wait till it kicks in and maybe overdue. Additional lengthy reports, et cetera, you see here on the slide. Given that there are currently cash businesses, these are things that we want to worry about as well as far as law enforcement goes. We do recommend folks review their employee manuals, especially for workplace drug policies and such. So hopefully you can put that out as a public service announcement to your community. Will municipal liability rates increase? I don't know. Again, this is something that you and your administration and legal team should discuss. Cannabis does have an impact on fire safety and could potentially require an increase in fire safety equipment, staff, and education, given that some of these wholesale growing warehouses are known to be susceptible to fires. So these are things that we just ask you to bring your attention to and consider. Some of the other information we'd like you to put out as a public service announcement is just a reminder that when you feel different, you drive differently. When you're in a good mood or a bad mood, or if you're using marijuana, which could impact your cognition, your attention, and your driving. So your your trip to the grocery store, while it could be right around the corner, could be very different. So it could be affected no matter how short your trip is. So we would like you to make sure that you bring this attention to your community. Just as an idea, let's watch this very short video clip.
Jay. I'm sorry. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI.
We've spoken to many organizations, and I still get a chill every time I see that video. Right now, I'd like to turn this back to Vanessa, and thank you for your attention.
So recreational marijuana use is still illegal for youth under the age of 21, and there are valid reasons for this. More and more youth are perceiving marijuana as not harmful to their health, which can increase youth. We've seen this happen locally and nationally with vaping devices. Research also shows us that marijuana use impacts a youth's academic achievement. Research also tells us that 1 in 6 youth who use marijuana can become addicted. Statistically, addiction affects youth at a higher rate than it does adults. It is very important to prevent youth marijuana use because of its negative effects on a youth's developing brain, and there is a lot of science to support this. The New Jersey Poison Control Center recently reported a rise in accidental marijuana poisonings among children under the age of 12. Their numbers have doubled from 2019, and it is 6 times higher than those affected in 2018. And on a separate but similar note, they have also reported pets that have died due to accidental consumption of large amounts of marijuana. One of the largest health insurers reported increased claims for marijuana use disorders from patients between 19 and 25 years old. Scientific research does show that medicinal marijuana can be used to treat certain conditions, but this should only be used under a physician's guidance for both youth and adults. This presentation does not aim at swaying a municipality to opt in or opt out. Our coalition is not a pro or anti-marijuana group. This presentation mainly aims to educate community members on the options of how a municipality can set control measures that the New Jersey bill allows a municipality to do only by August 21st. Municipalities should only make decisions with all the information at hand. Do not only rely on the information presented here, but consult with your business administrator, health department, legal team, and anyone else who can provide reliable and valid data and information that is supported by science to make that informed decision. I will now pass this on to Shireen Schultz.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Thank you, Vanessa. And I just wanted to thank all the collaborating partners. I just wanted you to see the representation of who put this PowerPoint together: Paterson Coalition Against Substance Abuse, the Passaic City Coalition, the Wayne Alliance, the Clifton Against Substance Abuse Alliance, AAA Northeast, the Passaic City Police Department, and of course, United for Prevention in Passaic County. I thank you for your time, and I will hand it back to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Klimek, you want to continue?
Yeah, yes, Mayor. So, okay. So the item you have now for consideration. Well, but let me ask, Mayor, do you want to, since you had the coalition speak on both the resolution and the ordinance, do you want to open it up to anyone else to speak on both of them? Would be, normally we have a dedicated public portion with the ordinance, but if you would like, and persons want to speak on both.
Public that wants to speak.
If you want them to speak, you just have to let them know that they can speak. You're going to be speaking on, I'm sorry, Resolution 2021-154, as well as the Ordinance 2021-07.
Yes, I remember the ordinance hasn't been put on the table, but it was introduced. I didn't put on the table for second reading and public hearing. But since the one group did speak, if for the sake of consistency, I'll leave it up to you, or you just may want to allow any persons who want to speak on Resolution 154.
Yes.
Okay. Now, resolution for the folks is out there. Resolution, that's the that refers to the planning board recommendation that that part of the the prospective ordinance allowing certain cannabis activities in the I-60 industrial zone not be allowed, as according to the planning board, they are not within the contemplation of the master plan.
We have one person that has raised their hand. Mr. Rabaki? Mr. Rabaki, if you can unmute yourself and state your name and address for record. Okay.
I see Miss.
Mr. Martin?
Hi, Jim Martin, 46 Marcia Road. A couple of things. I appreciate the presentation that was done this evening. Obviously, a lot of time was put into creating it. However, I would like to caution everybody that a number of the statistics and other items that are mentioned in there are very contradictory to the Justice Department study that was done in 2018 and recently released. Secondly, I'm not sure what it had to do with the ordinance that's before this council tonight. You're saying that you have to reevaluate this ordinance resolution, whichever term you want to give it, based upon feedback that you receive from the planning board that it's not in agreement with our master plan. The most recent master plan that the town has on its website is from 2012. And I think we can all agree that we are living in a very different world than 2012. Firstly, this law just became effective. There's no way that anyone who crafted this master plan back in 2012 could have had the foresight to incorporate the nuances of legalized marijuana into the master plan. Secondly, I noticed that in the presentation there was a lot of emphasis put onto the youth exposure of this. New Jersey's law is very clear that it's recreational use for those 21 and over. Same way that we control alcohol and pharmaceuticals, same has to apply to cannabis. If we're going to be reevaluating how cannabis is in our community based upon exposure to youth, are we now opening the door to reevaluating every liquor license that this town is issuing? Are we going to now look at the pharmacies in town and determine how they dispense medications? Because again, going back to that same Justice Department report, they determined that marijuana would actually be your third level gateway drug. That most people that fall into drug addiction, their first exposure is through something like alcohol. The second one is through the family medicine chest with prescription drugs. While I can appreciate you don't want kids doing any of these things, that's not what the law that's on the books is addressing. So my question to the council is, if you're going to reevaluate where you stand on this, make it applicable to the circumstances that are in front of you. And that is how businesses can start and be operated in our established industrial area. You shouldn't be taking the youth into account, because I doubt the youth of Ringwood have any idea what businesses are located over in the industrial area.
Thank you.
Am I done? I'm done? Okay, thank you.
Heck, is there anyone else?
Yeah, there is. Mr. Martin is complete.
Yes.
Oh.
3 minutes though.
Let's see. Mr. Gilman, if you could unmute yourself, please, Mr. Gilman.
Hey, hey everyone. I just want to also say that while the presentation from the 1950s PTA group was great, 99% of it was irrelevant, like Jim said. The issue is, can a business do this in our town, right? It's irrelevant. If kids are going to smoke dope, it doesn't matter if they're going to get it from Ringwood or West Milford or wherever now. In fact, they were probably getting it from years, even when it was illegal. So if we could just put the use and abuse and the whether it's useful or not useful and the percentage of CBD oil and whatever aside, totally irrelevant for this discussion. Should we have these businesses? Should we get the tax benefits from it? The 1% that group presented on was about some of the risks. Well, you put any business in the community, you're going to have some risk of a fire. You put a welding business in, you could have a fire. I mean, we have to be smart about this. Are we going to lose out to other communities if we don't make the right decision here? And that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Mr. Kearney? Mr. Kearney, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Sorry, I think I raised inappropriately. My apologies.
No problem. Ms. Geisel?
Hi, Amy Boyle Geisel, 10 Juniper Terrace, Ringwood, New Jersey. Obviously, I completely disagree with those last two comments, right? This is a unique substance that you're turning into a profit mechanism for new businesses. So it does fit squarely with the master plan. It does fit with zoning considerations, and it fits perfectly with community impact. Because the statistics that we've seen are that children are advertised to, children are led, that's not the right terminology, but encouraged to use this product because it's marketed to them in edibles and other devices, right? So this is a unique substance. It is not alcohol, right? And there's no long-term studies, clinical trials on teenage brain development on marijuana long-term. So to me, this is like if you're buying a car, the first year the car is introduced to the market. Do we as a borough council, as a community, want to introduce a new substance into our community that's targeted to children, that can have long-term negative impacts on children, long-term negative impacts on people who use it and drive, right? And operate heavy equipment, machinery, all that. It's not as simple as saying you're buying a 6-pack of beer, right? Because there's so many moving parts to this. You can see it in this legislation. The state has crafted it so you have to opt out. It's not automatic. And municipalities locally to Ringwood have opted out. I believe Wayne has. You can see it in the list of presenters. Most of the communities around us are not opting in. They are opting out. There's a reason for that. When you look at the numbers, you're looking at less than 2%, right? It's 15% of 2% may come into Ringwood. The rest are already designated for certain specific uses according to the state legislation. So I think you have to look at this very carefully for long term in terms of our community. And I am concerned as a parent because there is no enforcement procedures in this legislation for teenagers who are under the age of 18. There's no teeth to it. They get chastised, they get community service. So, you know, there's different signals we're sending out as a community, and I'm thinking that there's just more risk involved at this point than there is value to Ringwood. It's not bringing in substantial revenue. It's not bringing in a lot of businesses because there are already a lot, 6 that surround us in New York, 6 dispensaries, you know, large scale commercial dispensaries in New York State. So I just ask you to step back a bit. Let's do some significant work in this, see how it works for the long-term plan for Ringwood. I don't think it does. I don't think we should opt in. I would suggest a vote no on 2021-154 to follow our own planning board recommendation and to go from there. Thank you.
Ms. Maynes?
Find it funny that everyone's talking about marijuana and use and really
Excuse me, Carol, could you step closer to the mic because we can't hear you?
Sorry, I moved my microphone away from my face. Do you need my address again, Scott?
No, that's okay.
Okay. I just want to say that I find it funny that we're all talking about marijuana and use here in Ringwood. One of the biggest summer activities that occurs in Erskine and in Cupsaw are Fab Fridays and Fun Fridays. What are we saying to our children when you're sitting at the beach with your carry in, carry out alcohol and drinking? That causes as many accidents and as many issues as you're talking about is the possibility of someone smoking a joint or smoking weed or having a business here. That being said, I think this discussion is really about the master plan and the zoning. And I think you have to look at that. Is that master plan something that this falls into? And I think you have to put aside all of those other things because there's other issues here that I think you can purchase it in West Milford. There's other towns that are going to be selling it. So Ringwood restricting it is just going to take a revenue stream away from us. But also, as I said, I think it's pretty disingenuous to talk about cannabis when every one of us has sat at our lake and drank and got in a car and driven home.
Thank you.
Ms. Fuchs?
Hi, everybody. Cheryl Fuchs, 18 Linnea Place. I'll make this really quick. I'm echoing everything that Jim, Eric, and Candy said 100%. Amy's comment is full of flaws. Statistically, alcohol is much, much more dangerous than marijuana. And just one more quick thing. Just remember, to everyone on this council, everybody in our town voted on this in November. 2/3 of our town voted to legalize cannabis. There was a reason for that, not just so that they could buy it legally in town. Just remember that. People are buying it, people are smoking it, people are using it now. It's very, very easy to get. The people did not vote to legalize cannabis so that they can buy it legally. They want our town involved. That's it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Kennedy?
Yeah, Robin Kennedy. Just to comment on a couple things that have been said. Amy, a few people ago said marketing to children, it's illegal for under 21, the same way liquor is and the same way cigarettes are. So if kids are getting it, it's not about the law, it's about enforcement of the law. And that's not going to change any more than kids can get alcohol now. So it's legal. And as Cheryl said, 2/3 of the town want it. They voted. You don't always let people tell you what they think. It was on the ballot, 2/3 of Ringwood residents, Republican and Democrat. It is not a partisan issue. Wanted legal marijuana. They certainly didn't say except in our town. Otherwise, if they had such a thing against it, they wouldn't have voted for it. But we can't worry about it with kids in what you're doing right now, because kids are it's not legal if you're under 21. So it's a hypothetical that shouldn't exist. And if you really are worried about it, close the liquor stores, don't serve alcohol in any of the bars, don't let CVS sell cigarettes anymore, but they ask for proof of age. So it's going to be the same thing. How you decide to handle it is how you decide to handle it. Unfortunately, you're not always great about enforcing laws in town, but if you have the law is already there, the structure of whether we sell it, manufacture it, or package it, which is what's on the table right now, has nothing to do with teenagers or not teenagers. And Jim Martin is correct. Your master plan is just about at the end where it should be reevaluated again, which is, if my recollection serves me, is every 10 years. Obviously, they never would have imagined that this was going to happen at this time. They couldn't have seen this far ahead. Revise the master plan and find a way to make this work. Thank you.
Mr. Criscitelli?
Good evening, everyone. Lou Crescitelli, Skyline Drive. I just want to say, listening to the debate tonight, no matter what the council does, they cannot prohibit the delivery or use or possession of marijuana on private property, people's homes. So the question is the direction of the town and what we want to allow or not allow. The youth issue is very important because a few years ago, the state of New Jersey banned flavored vapes because flavored vapes were being attracted to youth. Kids were buying them illegally from stores. The teachers union supported banning flavored vapes because kids were using them in school. We fast forward to now, and the question's not really, can adults use legal cannabis or not? The question is, does the borough of Ringwood want to have retail sales? And why should we rush to allow retail sales when we don't even know what the rules are going to be that the Cannabis Commission is going to set upon us? Because those rules are due the same day that you have to make a decision. So it makes absolutely no sense to allow for this now and not take a wait and see so that whatever we do moving forward is the right thing. So I appreciate the council entertaining prohibiting retail sales, and I think that is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Mr. Sando?
Peter Sando, 24 High Point Lane. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just find this whole discussion to be off base. Like, are we talking about? It sounds to me like it's a debate that should have been had when they were trying to pass the state law, whether this is going to impact our young children or not, and what the, all of that whole presentation about, the strength of the marijuana, et cetera. I mean, what we're talking about here is, are we going to allow a business to manufacture it in the industrial zone? It has nothing to do with reefer madness or any of that kind of stuff, or any problems that the police are going to have. I don't think the police are going to have any problems with a industrial operation manufacturing marijuana. I just don't think all of that stuff is irrelevant to the discussion here. I think it's a total waste of the council's time. So I would suggest that you limit the discussion to specifically what did they find in the master plan that this is in contradiction to, and is it relevant, like Jim said, in today's climate, and with all the changes that we've had in our society and all of the information that we've gotten about, how bad really is marijuana. So it really means nothing. I mean, people are going to buy marijuana no matter what. I mean, if you want to try and repeal the law, then we could have this discussion. But as far as what you're considering right now for this resolution, I suggest you get to it. To the matter at hand.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Hi, Jim Martin. Scott, thank you very much for letting me finish my point because I was cut off earlier. I just wanted to sum up that there were two other components to consider here. One of which I think is near and dear to some of your hearts, given your political leanings, that this is a classic example of government overreach in terms of restricting commerce that's new and emerging. This law has already been passed by the state. It's up to us to decide. As I said earlier, I don't think the average Ringwood resident has any idea what businesses are in our industrial zones. As a matter of fact, some of your largest cannabis producers in the state are down in the Secaucus Meadowlands area. Driving past them, you would never, ever know what is going on inside of that building. And lastly, I believe the discussion is only centering on manufacturing, testing, packaging, things like that, that retail sales have already been taken off the table. So am I correct in that? That's what I heard last meeting. So,
Yes.
you know, the other caller that was talking about the quality of life in town, I don't think it's a relevant point. But thank you for letting me finish my point. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr. Kearney?
Yes, this is actually Melissa Kearney. PO Box. That's okay. It has his name on it. It's okay. We're both here. I just happened to sit in on this. I guess I kind of wanted to repeat what was being said earlier. If I'm reading the ordinance correctly and hearing what y'all are saying, this ordinance is just talking about legalizing the uses of it in the industrial park. We're not talking about retail. So no matter what, if people are choosing to purchase it, they have to go out of town anyway. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I understand. But I mean, I do understand some of the points people are making, but I just wanted to make sure if I was just misunderstanding what was read. So this really just has to do with the industrial part and what could be manufactured or packaged and whatnot there. It's not talking about retail within town. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, there was one other person, but I think they lowered their hand. Let me make sure. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Oh, yes. Hold on. Laurie?
Hi, it's Lori Renton, 43 Bear Mountain Road. I'm just wondering if anybody on the council has visited a legal marijuana grow or a legal shop. I was recently in Colorado. My friend is a VP of marketing of a weed company, and she took me around to these places, and I was so impressed. I had no idea what to expect. And it's a highly professional, highly regulated, very serious business. It's a business you would probably want in your town because they're not hiding anything. They are upfront because they are so scared of doing something wrong and losing their license or their privileges. And I think it's a pretty outstanding business to be in. In Colorado, they have to donate a certain amount of their profits to charity and do outreach and things like that. And so I just hope you would reconsider it from that point. And if you do have a chance to visit someplace, I highly recommend it.
Thank you.
That's all.
Mr. Sando?
Oh, yeah, I meant to say, because I heard some people being concerned about a deadline on us having to opt out. And Mr. Klimek can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that the ordinance that you have at hand is opting out of retail sales in Ringwood. And I think that should be made clear because I don't think people really understand what this is. That they're just, it's all about marijuana and its use, which really has nothing to do with the manufacture of it. It's a separate issue. So I just wanted to point that out to the folks who are in fear of this. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, we have no one else that, we have one more. Mr. Christofelli?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Heck. Yeah, if that was the consideration, the cultivation class 1 license, I believe, in the industrial zone, I see no concern with. And for the record, in the law, no marijuana cannabis cannot be grown on land that is farmland assessed. And I know that was an issue that was brought up by some people in previous meetings. So, to clarify, yes, I discussed retail and, I support the ordinance as is, allowing for the cultivation, but prohibiting the rest of the licenses. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Seeing no more hand raised.
so we need a motion to close public.
Well, you're not at that yet. This was just a discussion. Well, it bled over into the ordinance itself. I think you don't need that resolution at this time, Madam Mayor, but you do need action on 2021-154, if you would like. You have it before you. To have a council discussion, there should be a motion, a second, to at least to get it on the table. Now, this is the resolution making reference to the planning board's action as to whether you agree or disagree with it. So we need a motion and a second to get it on the table for discussion among council members.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Well, if there's any discussion,
Discussion. Can I ask one thing, Mr. Klimek? So what we're voting on is to disapprove of the recommendation of the planning boards.
yeah, that's right. You disagree with their recommendations of the planning board, and by law we have to state your reasons for it. And there are reasons, as I said, I put them down as a model for discussion. You can add or subtract from those. It's amend them or take whatever action you would like. But there's that particular resolution is on the table. It can be discussed. It can be amended. It's your pleasure.
Any discussion, council?
And sorry, when you say our reasons, you mean the reasons are outlined in the resolution. It's not when we do roll call, we take
Yes.
time to explain. Okay, just got confused. Thank you.
Mayor, before we start a discussion, could we thank our presenters and let them go? They've done a fine job and I'd hate to keep them hanging on all night.
Yeah, thank you, Shireen and your team. And you're welcome to stay if you want, or you can go.
Mayor, if Shireen has to stay, she has to stay in here because once she leaves as a panelist, she can't come back. The other three can just go because we brought them in from attendees.
Okay.
Understood. I will leave you to your meeting, and I thank you again for your time this night today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone from council have any comments before we vote? Nope.
Well, before you vote, I'd just like to reach, so that in case the public, if you don't mind, that would be okay, in case the public's not aware of what this resolution says. I'll summarize some parts if that's okay, and then reiterate in detail some other parts. Okay. Pursuant to certain ordinances, the ordinance under pursuant to certain statutes, the ordinance under consideration was referred to the planning board, which board considered it on June 7th, 2021. Okay. The board determined that the prohibition of all classes of cannabis operations within the jurisdictional boundary of the municipality was consistent with the master plan, but also determined that the exception in the ordinance permitting the manufacture, wholesale distribution, and cultivation of cannabis as conditional use in the I-60 zone to be inconsistent with the master plan. And the reasons for inconsistency were in the report that Mr. Van Eck submitted. Okay. The irrelevant statute provides that the governing body shall review the report of the planning board and may disapprove or change any recommendation of the planning board by a vote of the majority of the full authorized membership, and shall record its reasons in the minutes for not following the recommendations of the report. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the municipal council, again, this is my model, that it hereby disapproves the recommendations and determination of the planning board that permitting the manufacture, wholesaling, distribution, and cultivation of cannabis as conditional uses in the I-6 industrial zone is not consistent with the master plan for the following reasons. The ordinance promotes the goals of the land use element. It promotes better utilization of existing industrial zone lands to support local employment and will broaden the tax base. It protects and maintains the prevailing character and unique sense of place of the borough by limiting cannabis operations to a restricted area of the borough and by requiring additional regulations as conditional use. And it provides for desirable non-residential development in appropriate areas of the municipality that will complement the existing character of the municipality. Again, the cannabis operations are restricted. In fact, they will be if you approve it, will be conditional uses. So that means you intend to add additional requirements as to how the buildings are set back, how operations are conducted. They're provisions that you will develop over a period of time, along with the planning board, if you go along with the ordinance. So there's the basic reasons why there's a disagreement with the findings of the planning board. These are the reasons that the planning consultant gave in stating that the ordinance is in consonance and within the contemplation of the master plan. Okay, thank you.
So I will, sorry, but just by way of comment, I wanted to say that I agreed with the reasons that you outlined, Mr. Klimek, that are in the resolution as to why it does fit within the master plan, as well as the recommendation and view of our planner that it does fit within the master plan.
Okay. Do we need a motion? Do we have a motion?
Yes, you have a motion, a second. You're at the discussion phase, and if there's no discussion, you could call a roll call, Mayor.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton,
Yes.
Peretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
Okay, the next item, Mayor, would be the ordinance itself. Again, to just to give some background, this ordinance was introduced and passed first reading. It was sent to the county planning board, and it was sent to our planning board, and you know what action they took. It was also published in the newspaper, and we've had comments. The normal course of action on an ordinance is to read it by title, okay? And then to open it to the public, and thereafter to take action on it. So if I have your permission, I'll read it by title, Mayor. An ordinance amending Chapter XL entitled Zoning Ordinance of the Zoning Ordinance Regulations of the Revised General Ordinance of the Borough of Ringwood, County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, permitting cannabis cultivation, production, manufacture, and sale. Mayor, the matter can be officially can be open to the public for comment.
Mr. Klimek, is it possible to open it to the public as well as merge the comments from the previous?
Well, yes, that's why I understand it's confusing to try to segregate all the comments, but those comments will be deemed part of this public portion.
Excuse me, do I need to have for the record a motion to read by title in a second?
Yes.
And a roll call?
Yes.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton,
Yes.
Peretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
And Mayor, the matter can be open to the public.
Or anyone from the public?
Any additional comments from the public on ordinance 2021-154?
No,
Seeing none, Mayor?
no one. Have a motion to close public.
Kraken, I'll make the motion to close the public portion.
Landis, I'll second.
Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer? Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton,
Yes.
Peretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
Okay, Mayor, I'll recite a resolution resolved that ordinance 2021 as read by title being is hereby adopted and the municipal clerk is hereby directed to publish a copy of notice of passage of same in the official newspaper of municipality, to send a certified copy to the county planning board, and a certified copy to the assessor. There could be a motion and a second on that resolution, and any council discussion and a vote.
Have a motion?
I'll move it.
McCracken, I'll second.
Any discussion?
So,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. No, Mayor, after you.
I just want on the record that I'm not happy about that this kind of issue has.
Mayor, you have to lean forward because we can't hear you.
I'm happy that this cannabis issue has been forced on our town, but I feel this ordinance is a compromise. No, it was voted on by the residents, and it was voted yes, 2/3, and 1/3 voted no. So this ordinance is being limited to the industrial zone with no retail at all. No one will be able to come into Ringwood to purchase it. So therefore, I will be voting yes.
I'd like to echo what you said around it being a compromise and reflecting the wishes of the residents. And I believe it was Lori, I forget who spoke about, Lori had mentioned how nice the dispensaries are. And I've seen photos, they look very high-end, very sterile. And so I can appreciate that perspective, but I can also appreciate concerns that residents have about it being more visible and accessible within town, as well as some of the open questions around how that aspect of the business is going to be regulated. And where we do have transparency is on this part of the supply chain and how the municipality can have a 2% excise tax and restrict it to the industrial zone where, as a few people have said, it's not going to be impacting the character of our community in any kind of concerning way. And so I think that it's good that we're open to business. We'll see what happens, but at least we're, reflecting the will of the people.
Anyone else?
If I may, I agree with everything you said, Mayor Schaefer. The thing that bothers me the most is that we didn't have an opportunity prior to see the rules from the Cannabis Commission. The state is wrong for that, and I take issue with the state on that. But I do feel that this is a compromise, and I feel that we control the situation here, and that is what needed to be done. So I agree with everything you said.
Anyone else? Okay, can we have a vote then?
Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Ferretti?
Yes.
Matty-Landis?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
And Spear?
Yes.
Motion ordinance is adopted.
All right.
Mayor, could we take a 5-minute break before we go on to the rest of the evening? My back is I gotta move a little bit.
Okay. Yes.
Seconded.
Yeah, I need the rest from my side. Third that.
Sorry, Mayor, my back requires me to move a little bit after 3 hours sitting.
We, Mr. Heck, do you think Tracy's ready?
Tracy's ready. Unfortunately, Tracy's having some video problems. That's what Nicole has been advising through the course of the meeting. So she has audio. She's not having video right now, but she's ready. You would probably just need a roll call if that's right, Nicole?
Yes. So Mayor Schaefer?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Here.
Council members Bolton,
Here.
Ferretti,
Here.
Matty Landis,
Here.
O'Keefe? I think O'Keefe.
Here.
Yep, and Spear.
Here.
All right, next, there is no new business. So Scott, resolutions?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2021-155. Whereas the Chief Financial Officer has certified that funds are available for the payment of the current bill list in the amount of $979,901.03. Supplemental payments in the amount of $2,770,099.47. And merchant services fees in the amount of $154.47 to be credited to the following accounts for a total of $3,750,154.97, of which Ringwood Board of Education is receiving $1,727,143.92, and Lakeland is receiving $1,008,648.00.
We have a motion.
I'll move it.
Motion. Spear, all second.
Question? Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton,
Yes.
Ferretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-156 is a resolution deferring the due date for the third quarter property taxes. Whereas the Borough of Ringwood Tax Collector will issue final tax bills when information comes through the vital statistics. Whereas pursuant to NJSA 54:4-66, the third installment of 2021 taxes shall not be subject to interest until the 25th calendar day after the date of the final tax bills were mailed by the Borough of Ringwood. Now therefore be it resolved, the Municipal Council of the Borough of Ringwood in the Passaic County in the state of New Jersey on the 20th day of July, in accordance with the law of the third installment of 2021 taxes shall not be subject to interest until the 25th calendar day after the date of the final tax bills were mailed by the town. Be it further resolved that the third installment tax payment received after that date shall be subject to the interest commencing August 1st until the date of the third installment tax payment is received.
I have a motion.
Bracken, I'll make the motion.
Landis,
I'll
I'll second.
Discussion? Oh, Ryan, I think seconded, right?
Oh, no,
Jimmy-
Jimmy did. I was just waving.
I did.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton,
Yes.
Ferretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-157, whereas NJSA 40A:4-87 provides that the Director of the Division of Local Government Services may approve of the insertion of a special item of revenue in the budget at any county or municipality when such item shall have been made available by law and the amount was not determined at the time of the adoption of budget. Said directors may also approve of the insertion of an item for appropriation for the equal amount. Whereas the Borough of Ringwood has received a notice of award of $300,000 for the coronavirus relief funds and wishes to amend its 2021 budget to include this amount. Now therefore be resolved that the Municipal Council of the Borough of Ringwood, County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, hereby requests the Director of the Division of Local Government Services to approve the insertion of the revenue item in the budget 2021 in the sum which is now available for revenue. Be it further resolved that a like sum be added in the same under the general appropriations portion. Be it further resolved, the municipal clerk forward a certified copy of this resolution to the Director of Local Government Service for approval. We do this all the time. This is a Chapter 159, where we get notification of funds that were available, and after the budget's approved, and we bring it in. This is for the CARES Act, which we've been reimbursing our accounts for expenditures that we've had over the course of the year based upon that act. This is, you approved the first $713,000 last year as a budget revenue, and you're now approving the balance this year.
I have a motion.
Councilman Peretti, I'll move it.
Second.
Question? Roll
I
call.
have a
For
question.
these, oh, go ahead, Kathy.
No, Ryan, go ahead. You spoke first. I'll defer.
I was just going to clarify that for the CARES Act, this is all reimbursable. So these are expenditures that we had made, and then we got the approval for them, and now we have to bring them into this budget.
Correct. We have to, Debbie can answer, but we have to recharge the account. Debbie, do you have the line items which you're reimbursing, or you don't have that offhand?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. It would be mostly DPW budgets. This is money we've already spent, and we're just reimbursing our budget accounts when we get the reimbursement back from Passaic County. So it's not new money. This is just reimbursement for money we have spent already.
Great. Thank you for clarifying.
So Debbie, I have a question, or Scott, or the mayor, whoever I should address this question to. This 300,000, is that being added to the 2021 budget that we just passed?
The 300,000 is reimbursing the expenditures that we expended, some of which are probably in last year's budget for
Right.
monies that we've already spent. So what you're doing is you're bringing in a revenue and you're also bringing in an expenditure to balance it out. So it's a net neutral gain.
So the expenditure was last year.
Some of it was last year, some of it could have been this year.
Yeah.
Depends on, we apply for the grant based upon when people cash their checks, and we have to submit all that to Passaic County. And then they go through a process where they vet it and then they reimburse us. So some of it could be this year's funding, some of it could be last year's funding, but Debbie tracks where it needs to be replaced.
Okay, but it sounded like we're adding 300,000 to this year's budget. Is that correct?
We're adding 300,000 to the budget and we're adding 300,000 to expenditures. We're doing both.
Okay.
Correct, Deb?
Yes, that's correct.
Anyone
Thank
else?
you, Deb.
Welcome.
Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer? Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Matty Landis?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-158, whereas the Chief Financial Officer has certified the funds are available for the payment of the Erskine Lake Dam Assessment Fund in the amount of $24,806.14. Payment number 23.
Can't hear you, Dick. You're muted. Dick,
Sorry.
Mr. Klimek, you are on mute if you're trying to speak.
Yes, with the Erskine members, refrain from voting, please.
do we have a motion in a second?
I'll make that motion. Landis?
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer?
And
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
I'll abstain.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Moretti?
Abstain.
Matty Landis?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
And Spear?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-159, whereas the professional services contract was awarded to Schwann Halls Engineering for the Borough Hall parking lot survey and stakeout, contract number 2021-104 on April 19th, 2021, in the amount of $5,900. And whereas the Schwann Halls Engineering has submitted and the Borough Engineer has reviewed and recommends the payment of the amount in the amount of $3,502.50 for June 25th, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that the Borough of Ringwood hereby approves the payment in that dollar amount to Swanwick Halls Engineering of Oakland, New Jersey.
Motion, please. Have a motion?
I'll move it.
Councilman Ready. I'll
I'll
second.
second it. Whatever you wrote down, Nicole, it's fine.
All right.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken,
Yes.
Council Members Bolton,
Yes.
Moretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-160, this is garbage bids. Received a garbage bid. I forget the date of it, but it's in your packet. Jeff Uhas handles all the bidding for the waste. It appears that we had one bidder and our contract is increasing 5.89% per year, it's a 3-year contract. Total increase would be $656,225.54. I don't know if Jeff has made a recommendation. He doesn't think that going back out to bid is going to yield us any better prices. So he's recommending that we move forward with this resolution. Mayor, would you like me to read this one by title, and then you guys can determine whether you want to move forward or not? I'm sorry, Mr. Bold, did you raise your hand? No.
I was coming to unmute, but then realized I was already on mute. And isn't this the same situation we had with the last contract as well? We only had one response.
Yes. Yes. And we asked for options. The options are expensive. So maintaining what we have is yielding that 5.89% increase, or approximately 200,000 a year. So I'll read the resolution. Whereas notice to bidders for curbside collection, removal, transportation, and disposal of solid waste and recycling materials, contract number 2021-101, was advertised in accordance with the local public contracts law. And whereas one bid was received open and read on Thursday, June 24th, 2021 at 11 a.m. And whereas the said bid was reviewed and recommended by the borough engineer, Jeff Uhas. And whereas the chief financial officers have certified that funds are available. Now therefore be it resolved that the contract for curbside collection, transportation, removal, disposal of solid waste and recyclable materials, contract number 2021-101, be awarded to the low bidder, Interstate Waste Services of Teaneck, New Jersey, subject to legal review as follows. Solid waste and recycling collection and disposal in the amount of $4,154,923.54. Garden debris collection in the amount of $216,363. The total of all three collections, $4,371,286.54 for a 3-year period. Be it further resolved, the municipal manager and the borough clerk are hereby authorized to execute the agreement for the project award.
Have a motion? Have a motion?
Spear, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion? Scott, in the past, when they've gone up on this, we went out to bid again, but we didn't get anyone.
In the past, we have gone back out to bid. It did not yield better prices. Unfortunately, we can't attract people to bid on this project. And part of the problem is the garbage companies are so tight that they have one truck in each one town each day, and they don't have the ability to adjust unless they have an ability to have another town that complements the days of week that we have collection. So it's difficult, and we have to go out to bid based upon the state guidelines. The state controls the garbage and recycling bidding and contracts very closely. I'm sure Mr. Klimek could probably advise us of that. So unfortunately, you're kind of stuck. And there's options that we can do to take away services, but in the past, the council has not been interested in doing that. And as you remember, we changed the recycling slightly last year, so that it was more consistent, which cost us a little bit more, and I think we kept that in there this year. So Jeff doesn't agree that we will be yielding any benefit to go back out to bid. We could do it, but you may end up with a higher price.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? All right. Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken,
Yes.
Council Members Bolton,
Yes.
Moretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
Resolution 2020, excuse me, Resolution 2021-161. Whereas a professional service contract was awarded to H2M Associates to consolidate and restructure Ringwood's GIS data that has been collected over the past 10 years and set up Ringwood's GIS system using ArcGIS Online, contract number 2020-105 in the amount of $15,000. And whereas H2M Associates has submitted, an engineer has reviewed and recommends payment in the amount of $1,999.62. Now therefore be it resolved, Municipal Council of the Borough of Ringwood hereby approves the partial payment in that amount to H2M Associates of Melville, New York.
Motion.
Councilman Peretti, I'll move it.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken,
Yes.
Council Members Bolton,
Yes.
Moretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-162.
Mayor, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mayor, may I interrupt?
Yes.
For this resolution, I'd like to read a more informative and comprehensive resolution because our schools need and deserve funding and our children deserve better.
Mayor, I support the resolution before us, but I would ask that we not read Councilwoman Landis's resolution. It was sent late this afternoon, and I think the language is a little draconian.
Well, I think the council has a right to vote whether they want to hear Councilwoman Landis's resolution, and I see no reason why it shouldn't be read.
It's in total agreement with the resolution before us. There is no difference. It's just that the language is inflammatory and draconian.
Mayor, could I make a motion that we read the resolution that Councilperson Landis has and she wants to read?
Okay.
I'll second that. We should be able to read and hear.
Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer, Deputy Mayor McCracken,
Yes.
Council Members Bolton,
Yes.
Moretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes, but perhaps you can tone it down a bit.
Mayor, Councilman Landis is going to read this because I don't believe I have it.
well, let me just finish with Spear.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Spear vote yes.
Scott, you might not have it because it was submitted very late this afternoon.
Okay, well,
I don't need it, but I can't read it if I don't have it. But
so Jamie, would you like to read it?
Sure. Thank you. It says, whereas the governor's school aid changes in 2018 through the enactment of his first budget and Bill S2 provided for a 7-year incremental reduction in state school aid to the Ringwood School District and the Lakeland Regional School District. And whereas the Borough Council finds these draconian decreases to be detrimental to our borough's school districts and will hinder their ability to provide the high quality of education that our students deserve. And whereas the said draconian reductions in state school aid has caused an unwarranted burden on the taxpayers of Ringwood. And whereas, as a result of the fiscal year 2019 state budget and S2, the Ringwood School District will lose $1,182,765, or 41.3% of its state school aid, and Lakeland Regional will lose $2,833,834, or 58.6% of its school state aid. And whereas a total overhaul of New Jersey's school funding formula is warranted to provide more equal and fairer school aid across the state. And whereas absent a total overhaul, there's legislation now pending, A5544 and S3657, which seeks to lower the tax burden imposed on Ringwood, Lakeland Regional, and other districts by the aforementioned reduction in school aid. And whereas A5544 and S3657 requires that school districts such as Ringwood and Lakeland Regional would receive the same amount of state school aid in the 2021-2022 school year, equal to the amount of the district's state school aid in the 2020-2021 school year. And whereas the state has received $6.2 billion in federal aid and is able to fund the relief sought in A5544 and S3657. And whereas it is in the interest of the students and taxpayers of Ringwood to support A5544 and S3657, it would say now therefore it is resolved by the Borough Council that it hereby demands that Governor Murphy and all New Jersey legislators take action and provide a total overhaul of New Jersey's school funding formula to provide more equal and fairer school aid across the state, and to immediately enact A5544 and S3657 to halt state aid reductions for the upcoming school year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
So,
Mayor, can we vote on the first resolution first?
Mac, how would we do this then? Vote on.
Okay, well, you have a resolution, 162 has not been introduced, nor has the other resolution been introduced. It's been announced. So you have two resolutions, neither of which been introduced. So it's the council's pleasure which one you want to take action on.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce 2021-162.
I'll second, but would also like discussion.
Discussion?
Just about both and the differences between them. If that's appropriate or okay.
I'm sorry, Ryan, I didn't hear that.
Oh, just looking for a discussion about the differences in the points between the two before we vote on one versus the other.
Okay.
Like, and first off, thank you, Councilwoman Landis, for putting it together and doing so much research. 162, which was in our books, has a 5-year incremental reduction in school aid versus the 7 years that you've got.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure which is correct there.
When I did my research, it's a 7-year incremental, but it's we've lost aid. This is an ongoing thing. We've lost aid year after year after year. And the main difference in the other one, the one that I read, was that it also calls upon people to start doing the difficult task of looking at our school funding formula and to look at an overhaul of the funding formula. There's many people in the profession that say that that the funding formula we use in New Jersey just can't sustain. And so that would probably be the main difference in the two that I feel.
Councilwoman
But
Landis.
the bills, oh,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Brian, sorry.
Well, and just to clarify, but the bills referenced don't include a new funding formula. It's just calling on the legislature that we need one.
Yes, correct. That's my understanding.
Okay. And then the S3657, because that wasn't in 162. It's the same content as the Assembly bill. It's just moving through the Senate.
The Senate,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Councilwoman Landis. Yes. Your resolution wouldn't be going before the state legislator, would it? I believe Robert Orth's resolution that is 2021-162 is the one that's before the state legislator. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Yes, Councilwoman.
Right. So your resolution wouldn't go to the state legislator where Robert Orth's is moving forward. and is presently in front of the state legislator.
Okay.
So that's the one I think that the council should support because it's relevant.
Well, can't this other one also be sent?
But it wouldn't be put before the state legislator. It hasn't been introduced. It'd have to be introduced by assembly. It couldn't be introduced by the Ringwood Council. It would have to be introduced, I think, by Robert Ott or one of the other assembly representatives, wouldn't it?
My understanding is it would just be saying that Ringwood takes a little bit more of a stance on it. That would be my understanding, Councilwoman. My understanding is that we would just take a harder line stance than the one that he proposed. So that would just be my understanding of that.
Mayor, if I could say something, I just agree with Jamie. I like her resolution. It seems a lot more comprehensive, covers a lot more information, and personally think that the teachers and the children deserve it, and they deserve our support.
I couldn't agree more, and I thank Robert Ott for putting this forward, and I totally support his resolution.
The one in 162 though doesn't even outline how much we've actually lost in state aid. When you actually look at the numbers, it's staggering. 41.3% in Ringwood, 58.6% in at Lakeland. So I just felt that this was more comprehensive because it actually showed the community just how much of a reduction we've been taking.
Yeah. Mayor?
And I think they reference, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go please, Ms. Bolton.
Well, I was going to say, I think both resolutions reference the same assembly bill.
Correct,
so they're both supporting Oth's bill. It's just what language is going to land on his desk and his colleagues' desks supporting it.
Correct.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table the resolution number 162 as was presented in our books in favor of the resolution that Councilwoman Landis read into the record.
Correct, and I'll second that.
Okay, can I have a roll call?
Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Matty-Landis?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
I will say yes because I support the bill, but I do think that in the past, Mayor, you have not allowed votes on resolutions that were just presented at the meeting, that they needed to be done in advance. I hope in the future you'll be more consistent. Yes.
And Spear?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor, members of the council, then you have to vote on Ms. Landis's resolution.
Right.
So,
It has to be introduced formally, motion, second, etc.
I would like to move the motion as read by Councilwoman Landis.
Correct, and I will second that.
roll call?
Okay, just 1 second. Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Matty-Landis?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
But just for the record, I'm going to have that be resolution 2021-167.
$167, did you say?
167, yes.
All right, is consent agenda resolution. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. Consent agenda resolution number 2021-163. Whereas the mayor and council of the Borough of Ringwood has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of various proposed resolutions. And whereas the mayor and council of the Borough of Ringwood is not desirous of removing any resolution for individual action from the agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that the following resolutions on the consent agenda are hereby approved. 163 is the approval of the consent agenda. 164 is the approval of payroll and payroll transfers for June 2021. 165 is authorized refund state court tax appeal block 2501 lot 4 and refund overpayment 21 property taxes block 302 lot 13.
Have a motion.
Here, move.
Second.
Landis, I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer? Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Peretti?
Yes.
Mario Landis?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
And Spear?
Yes.
Scott, you want to go back to manager's report and answer any of those?
Yeah, Mayor, I tried in the beginning to answer some of the questions as best I could while I was breaking the report up. But I will try and go back and answer those questions. Some of these are going to be answered in the second part of my report. So first, let me talk to the Zoom meeting. You know, the council room is small, and our policy here in the borough of Borough Hall is all visitors, employees must wear masks unless they show proof of vaccination. So everybody would have to wear masks. Somebody would need to be there to check temperatures, manage number of people in the meeting space. We do have a small space. Some council members have expressed some concerns about being so close to the council desk, because remember we have a small council desk and people are right there. And unfortunately, we have a few people that are health compromised. So while 3 of us are in the building right now, and I would love to see us back, we do need to work to get back, but we do have some work to do. And I think I spoke to Janet about it today a little bit, and I think we should see what happens for the next month with some of the new variants out there and some of the upticks that in cases that some places are having. Fortunately, we have not. I'm grateful for that. But that's hopefully we can get to that, because it'd be much easier if we were in person. So that's the Zoom meetings. Somebody also asked about COVID related purchases. I have gone over this in the past, but I took this out of the book. We have done some HVAC installation in Borough Hall and in the library with plasma purification for cleaning. We did it in all the air conditionings in the buildings. We did entranceway touchless doors, insulated and brought in installation and costs associated with that. We did touchless chest compression system for the ambulance squad. We had an autoclave room decontamination for Borough Hall, for the ambulance buildings, for the ambulances, and for some of the firehouses. We had a broadcast system installed, which was mandated so that we can help with our virtual meetings. We had ServPro come in and do deep cleaning several times, more than several times, in the beginning part of the virus, because we had to deep clean all the buildings, all the police cars, all the ambulances, all the fire trucks, fire stations, all these things for emergency responders in the beginning had to be cleaned at length, and that was costly. We bought new signs so that we can communicate with the public. We also have put in acrylic barriers in many places. We've updated the court system so that we can have remote courts. We put in new computers so that we can have computers. We had antiquated computers. We couldn't handle some of the Zoom, some of the video conferencing. So that essential key employees could participate in meetings, Zoom calls, and whatnot. We put in touchless scanners at the Borough Hall, the police station, the library, and a few of the firehouses. We upgraded the health department computers because they weren't compatible with the state health computer system. They needed to have an upgrade in order to be compatible. We bought 4 disinfecting lamps for the ambulance building and for the Borough Hall. We had labor to control all of these meetings and to control different things that went on, and health response and investigators and contact tracers and whatnot. All of that was reimbursable under the grant. We bought stuff for DPW and buildings to purification of parks and playgrounds. We did a lot of signs around town for COVID related information relative to the ball fields. We put ThinkPads and portable web cameras for essential employees to work from home. We had to put thermometers and all types of screening for every rec program, every coach, that all had to be purchased. We had to reimburse for some of the IT access for all these people to start remoting into our systems and make sure that we were secure and the access was complete. Protective personal equipment, gloves, masks, disinfectant, cleaners, gowns, shields. I mean, you cannot imagine the amount of personal protective gear that we went through over the course. And I will remind everybody that the people that were selling these items that were in demand and in limited supply were certainly gouging. And we did a lot of things with the health department. So these are some of the items. I've gone through that before, but somebody asked where some of these items went. So I thought I would review that again. So let me go through let's see, what else did I have on here? In-person meetings, the political sign ordinance. I had a recommendation that a sign committee work on that. That committee was Mr. McCracken, Mr. Bolton, and Mr. Ferretti. So I will yield to them on that discussion. Would
you like me to speak on that now?
That's up to you, Deputy Mayor, if you want to.
Why don't you wait until council discussion, if you don't mind.
The COVID expense. Okay, we answered that question. The American Rescue Act. I answered that in my first question, how much money we received. In my first portion, the James Drive plant, where does the money go? Well, the money goes to maintenance. The money goes to maintaining the facility, to trucking away the sludge, to keeping that plant operational. And I also went through a rather lengthy list of the items that we have replaced, the significant items, not the more maintained mundane items. We also have a consultant who operates that plant. The new consultant's been doing a very good job. As a matter of fact, he has taken us out of an issue of non-compliance with some of those items, even though we still have to make all these repairs. The bond breakdown, there were 2 bonds. I don't know what a service fee is, but I can talk about the items in the bonds. The total bond for the municipality was issuing $2,930,750 of bonds and notes, of which those bonds were paving of Pinewood Drive, LaVaughn Boulevard, Fox Hill Lane, Stonewall Court, Fieldstone Drive, Black Rock Terrace, which were the named ones, but not limited to, because if there was extra funds, we would pave more. The bond amount was $476,750. The acquisition of new equipment for the police department, the radio communication system upgrades, so that we can communicate throughout more of the community. The bond amount was $719,000. Improvement to various owned buildings, which is really the library, the new roof, the heat and air conditioning system for the library. The total amount was $587,500. It's a reimbursable grant, so we had to fund the whole thing and then have it paid back to us by the state. And item number 3 was James Drive Treatment Plant, $1,425,000 for the bond amount for the upgrade of the plant to bring it up into today's standards. The second bond, which is the water department, which is paid for by the water users, so it's totally different than the town, was for a dollar amount of $152,000 to replace 225 horsepower pumps to pump from Skyline Lakes up to the Skyline Drive tank. So those are the 2 bonds that we went through introduction 2 meetings ago and last meeting. Relative to the costs, you could probably address the costs of what the bond council charges and what all that stuff to reintroduce a bond. And I don't know why I have in my head that it was about $20,000, but you could probably answer it better. I'm sorry, you're there you go.
Yeah, the cost is usually about $10,000 anytime that we have a bond that's introduced there. We've already have the invoice from the bond council for this last round. I'm just very concerned what direction we're heading in. We talked about this with the finance committee for the last 2 years of the different projects that we knew that we need to go out to bond for. And right now, we don't have the money available in the budget to finance these projects. So it's something that you're going to have to give us direction of where we want to go with funding for these different projects. There's the library, the sewer plant, the police radios, and paving of roads. And then the separate bond ordinances for the water department, and that's for pumps that need to get replaced.
So we had 2 bonds. Each bond had costs. So you have bond counsel for one and bond counsel for the other.
Yes.
So, to answer the next question, we don't know what the interest rate is. We won't know until we go out to bid. But I can tell you when we went out to bid on the 8th of 2021, after premium where they paid a premium to bid on our items, we got a rate of 1.5%.
Correct.
So that's that. I talked about an in-person meeting.
I don't know if you have an answer for Ms. Tall had about the.
That's in my report. I'm going to get to that. I stopped on. You were talking about the quarry?
Yes.
Yes, I have that. I'll get to that when I get to that portion. You kind of took me all out of order here, so I'm a little messed up. Mr. Eversback asked for solutions, and I don't know that I have the answer to that. And I think that answers the questions that are not contained. So let me go through the second half of my report, and hopefully I didn't miss anything when I broke it in half. From Jeanette Davison, our health department, this is the cases. The end of May, June, and the beginning of July were pretty quiet. Since mid-July, Ringwood numbers are starting to creep up. Cases to date are 1,223. We unfortunately still have 10 deaths, and we have 7 active cases. The Delta variant in the primary strain is the primary strain in New Jersey. Fully vaccinated people account for 1% of the cases from the Delta and have a milder illness than that does not usually require hospitalization. In other parts of the country where vaccination rates are below 50%, they're experiencing surges. Many hospitals, mostly between the ages of 20 and 40 range, who are unvaccinated. That's the hospital. Those are many who are hospitalized, I'm sorry. Currently, we have no data suggesting that the Delta variant is affecting our residents, but we would like to be cautious when we travel and are unvaccinated to continue to wear the mask and social distance if social distancing is not possible. In Ringwood, for those 18 years and younger, 70% are vaccinated and another 5% have received a first dose. When looking at the 12 plus population as a whole, 60% of the population are fully vaccinated and an additional 7% have received their first dose. As a department, they are continuing to communicate with other local health departments as well as the state so that we can be prepared should any situation regarding the COVID arise. We're encouraging all of the people to get vaccinated if you're eligible. Get out there, get the shot, because you know what? It reduces the infection so much. So I think she's encouraging that. So that came from our nurse. I have a resolution for you this evening for another grant. And I would have put this in the packet, but we didn't know until today they wanted an actual resolution. We talked about this, I think, 2 months ago. Resolution, do you have a number for me, Nicole?
It'll be 168.
This is a resolution of the Borough of Ringwood authorizing the acceptance of the State of New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety Office of Attorney General SFY 21 Body Worn Camera Grant Program State Fiscal Year 2021. And this is a grant outlining $48,912 for the body worn camera program with the state. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is essentially accepting the grant. They want a resolution that you folks are accepting the grant for these body worn cameras. Keep in mind, like I said at the last time we talked about this, the software, the managing of the software, the redacting, is all stuff that we're going to have to figure out down the road because it's not included in this. But this will pay for a little bit of computers, but certainly by no means the total cost. But I think this certainly will. We're ahead of the curve. We have a lot of these cameras. We're just waiting for guidance on policies from the Attorney General's office right now. So So I have that motion. I have that resolution for you, Mayor.
Yes, and I have a motion.
Bracken, I'll make the motion.
Have a second?
Landis, I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer, Deputy Mayor McCracken,
Yes.
Council members Bolton,
Yes.
Moretti,
Yes.
Matty Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
The townwide garage sale is going to be Saturday, 9/25, 9 to 4, and Sunday, 9/26 from 9 to 4. Ringwood Cleanup Day is going to be Saturday, October 23rd, in conjunction with Passaic County Hazardous Waste Day at Park and Ride. The quarry, I will tell you that we issued a notice of abatement. We found that they were working before hours, outside of their allowable hours. We gave them time to abate the situation, and we put them on notice. So we issued them a notice of abatement, and this was, I think they received it early July. So that's one issue. They have to work when they work before the hours, or they have construction in there fixing things before it affects the neighbors in the area, and the noise travels, especially in that area. So backup beepers, trucks idling, all that stuff affects it. I asked Mr. Iskin for a report on the standing wells, and he writes, the wells have standing water varying from 19 to 45 depth from the surface. The static well levels is measured from the top of the well casing to the water surface static level below. They have a meter on the end of the tape. Attached for the records, he has pictures of the 3 wells that were installed, the approximate location. I had him inspect them the week after they were installed to ensure that he could get that static water level, so that we can confirm that stuff's going to be done on a regular basis. And so the observation wells, I can send to the council some of the locations, but it looks like all 3 of them have been complete, installed, and have been already tested and determined what the static water level is for each particular monitoring well. The CARES Act update. Original allocation was $713,506. As I mentioned previously, the $300,000 that we just brought into the budget, we requested an additional $300,000. I want to commend the finance office for working with me in getting all of our allocation. We have applied for 100% of our allocation plus $95,000 in case some fall out. Anything left, we can apply probably to the other grant. But I think that this is an example of the building here doing a great job at documenting, putting documents together, submitting a plan, and getting it approved. And I think we're far ahead. Debbie, you could probably tell me better. We're far ahead than many of the other communities. Some of the other communities are lagging way behind. We have used our entire allocation and then some. So that's all money coming back to the borough already.
Yeah, I think we're number 3 in Passaic County.
That's terrific. I think that's all I have for this evening. And if I forgot something, I apologize. So when you go through the mayor and council, I'll look through my packet and see if I missed when I was kind of filtering through to answer some of these questions earlier.
All right, thank you. All right, next is attorney's report. Mr. Klimek.
Just one brief comment on the cannabis ordinance. The planning board will be required now to come up with very specific regulations on the conditional uses. So you just didn't say these uses are allowed. You're requiring the planning board to come up with standards that you will review eventually and act into ordinance. So I wanted that to be clear. So the process of regulation has just started. Okay.
All right, next is the second general public comment. Again, please limit your comments to 3 minutes and try not to be repetitive. Not that anyone would feel.
Mr. Sando?
Hi again, Peter Sando, 24 High Point Lane. Yeah, you know, your synopsis of the COVID expenses was quite impressive. What I was more referring to would be the documentation. If I'm understanding it right, forgive me. that Debbie submits a document to the county and then they approve it. And is that document, you know, with specific amounts for each of those items that you were talking about, is that on the website or is it available?
It's not on the website because, but it does get submitted. There's a process. The county set up a program by which they hired a vendor to manage this, and they set guidelines, and we take those guidelines and we applied whatever we felt would work towards those, what we could use for those guidelines, and we submit them. We submit them and with backup. We submit them with checks. We submit them whatever the case may be, and then they go through those and they determine what's eligible, what's not eligible, and based upon that they approve it. And then probably maybe the next freeholder meeting, I'm not sure exactly how quickly it comes, then they send a check to us. They send us an approval and then they send a check after that.
So is this document available for the public?
I would have to, I don't know, I would have to talk to Mr. Klimek about what documents, you know, are available. I wouldn't know that.
I mean, it's
assume so.
A substantial amount of money, and it's our money. It's the town's money, and you know we should be able to see how, you know, what specifically, and especially then when it comes to the Rescue Act, the way I understand it is that you can do a computation at this point in time as to approximately what you're going to receive. And my question on that was, is there going to be a plan on how to allocate that, and will the public be able to be involved, or at least to see the plan?
Two separate items. The American Rescue Plan is I told you the dollar amount earlier that we received 600 and I don't have it in front of me, but in my first report I read the exact dollar amount that we received this year,
638,373.51.
Okay, and that they're still working at. They have some general guidance, but they're interim. They don't have.
They're still working on it.
Yeah, and they anticipate receiving one next year, although I don't believe it until I see it. And the recommendation that we met with the person who managed the CARES Act for the county, and they're offering services to help towns figure out what they want to do with it. And their recommendation is you have 4 years to spend it. This is the only money you're going to get. You ought to put a plan together, throw all the things in that you think you may be able to use this money for. Make sure you save enough for any health-related issues, and then start combing out what's important and what's not important to the community. I think this is something that the council members will be working on over the next couple of months, so that they can determine what they really want to use this money for. And then if we get a second wave, do the same thing.
Well, that was my next question: is would the council be involved in it? And that's encouraging to know that they'll be.
Well, I will tell you, Mr. Sando, the council is who put together the plan that we put forward for the budget. They're very involved with the finance committee. They're very involved with the bonds. As a matter of fact, the council was who picked what we were bonding, when we were bonding, and how we were bonding.
I'm not talking about bonding. I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. But I'm suggesting that they're involved in all the finances is what I'm suggesting.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else, Mr. Head?
There's a few. I'm sorry. I'm a little slow here. Okay, we have Mr. Carney.
Hello. Just a quick question on the bonds that were voted down last month.
Just state your name and address, your address for the record.
Sean Kearney, P.O. Box 129, Ringwood.
Thank you.
Okay. From what I understand, the one bond was to upgrade the town's emergency response communication system.
Yes.
Yes.
And another bond was for the sewage treatment plant on James Drive, which affects the water quality going into Skyline Lake.
Yes.
I think Ringwood being made up of three major lake communities, water quality is very important. And even more important is the emergency communications system used by our police and volunteer ambulance and volunteer fire departments. I think it's crazy that we could vote down a bond that would help both these issues, and now may have to lay out even more taxpayer money to reapply in the future for another bond. Is there any way we can know who voted against these bonds so we know who not to vote for the town council in the future?
Mayor, I'll yield to you on that.
I think you could go back and ask, look in the minutes.
Okay, so it is available as a public record that we can look into that and find out who voted against it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Rabacki?
Thank you. Paul Rubacki, 99 Edward Drive. I guess this is really just two public service announcements. First of all, I'd like to thank the community for their support on behalf of the Knights of Columbus Council 6212 at St. Catherine of Bologna Church. On Monday, July 11th, we hosted a blood drive and had a record 41 people respond. We garnered 36 pints of blood. I mean, the blood bank was amazed at the turnout, especially we had people coming during a rather severe thunderstorm showing up to donate. So we actually were there about an hour and a half later than scheduled because of the number of people. So we thank everybody, and we look to continue to host these blood drives to help out the community. The second thing is that because of a request from a senior citizen, I found that there is a charity based in Wayne, New Jersey that looks to connect seniors, veterans, and disabled persons who need landscaping help to connect them with landscapers in the local community. I met the gentleman who formed the charity, and so we're going to have some discussions about how to publicize that first among the landscapers in our community to see if we can get them involved on the providing the service side, and then secondly, if we can get that going, then make that publicize that to the community so the people who need the service can receive that and, you know, take a burden off some of the people, and also look to basically improve the overall quality of the appearance of homes in our community. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Mr. Rabacki, where is that charity based?
It's based in Wayne, New Jersey. It's called I Want to Mow Your Lawn. So I happened to meet the person today and we had a chat. So I'll find out more information, and I'll let you know. Mayor, I'll let you know, and I'll let Mr. Heck know what's going on.
Yeah, if you would give me that information, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. They also handle shoveling snow. Good night.
Yeah, hi, Robin Canetti. I hope I can get this out because my internet's been in and out about a dozen times tonight, which, given the service that Optimum gives us, would be another reason that you guys should start having people coming into the meeting for people for whom Zoom is inconsistent. I have two comments. I don't know when you're going to get to vote on the James Drive bond, but I have to say, as a septic owner, which the majority of people in town are, I do object to having taxpayer dollars pay for other people's waste disposal. I mean, when you buy a house that's a septic system, which most of us have done, we know that there are costs connected to that. So if your septic fails and you have to pay 30, 50, 60, whatever $1,000 it costs, you got to pay for that, not the taxpayers. Nobody's bonding for you. I have to get my tanks pumped out this week. Nobody's paying Lakeland Septic. I am. So, and I pay now two bills through Alcoa for the dam repairs, the one at Upper Lake and the one at Little Beach, which I'm not complaining about. It's my lake. I'm happy to pay to repair my dam. I'm not happy to pay for other people's waste disposal systems. So somehow there has to be a way that you can work something out. Like I'm paying 20 years, so much money every year to pay for the 2 dams. Why is everyone in Ringwood with our own homeowner problems and expenses going to be paying back a bond to fix certain people's sewer system? I have a real problem with that. It just doesn't make sense to me. The 3 lakes, we all had to pay to repair our dams, and we're paying for that. So that's my one issue. My other issue, Mayor, is if you don't allow the council people to respond to the public before the council people get to speak, at that point, both public portions are over. This is our last shot. So if the council people have responses to what was said earlier in the meeting or now, and you don't let them say anything until the very end, then it defeats the whole purpose of people coming to dialogue with our elected officials. So again, do we have open government or don't we have open government? You can't have a discourse if if 2 sides don't get to exchange whatever their points of view are. The way you've set it up, it's a rigged system. So that's all I've got to say. And I'm grateful that I got it in before Optimum decided to cut off my internet again. Good night, folks.
Mr. Gilman?
Hey, I have 2 points. Just want to make sure everyone on the call is clear, because I heard the last Mr. Carney say like there was a bond for this and a bond for that. There's only one bond with combined, with all 3 of the issues combined. If the people who brought the bonds forward had just done them separately, none of this discussion would have happened, right? The bond for the library would have passed, the bond for the police would have passed, and then the bond for the water would have been tabled for further discussion. So whoever put the bonds together is really at fault here, in my opinion. I get that other people don't feel that way. Okay. And number 2 about the ordinance. I know Mr. Rubaki said earlier, well, why don't you just go ahead and put complaints into police? Well, you know, I know some of these people with these flags up. I mean, they're a little off center. I mean, some of these people have Facebook cover photos with assault rifles going on. They're a little nuts. So I just would rather the police do their job. And I mean, I'm not afraid. I'm happy to do it for the neighbor that's down the street, which I don't really care about. But, you know, I can foresee people not being willing to come forward. And I know Mr. Rubaki was suggesting that, but I don't think that's best for this town. Thank you.
Hi, Jim Martin, Marshall Road. I have a couple of questions. In terms of the expense for the radios for the police and emergency services, I think you said the number of 719,000, and I think we can all agree that's a lot of money. Exactly how does that break down? How many handheld units? You kept referring to handheld units. How many handheld units are we purchasing at 719,000? If you add up all the police, fire, ambulance corps, that seems like an incredibly high per unit number, but I was just curious what the breakout is. Number 2, in terms of council meetings, I certainly hope that you will return to live meetings soon. And if so, I don't know why you can't pursue also having a hybrid method where people can still log in through Zoom and see what's the goings on of the meetings. Unlike a lot of Zoom meetings I've been on, I don't see an attendee counter on these, and I'm curious how many people are attending the council meetings online. And then lastly, in terms of the way the council is responding to questions from the public, the first portion tonight, there was a whole lot to unpack. And I think the majority of it, yes, indeed, was addressed. But right now it's 10:55 p.m. I don't know how many of those original people are still on this, because just seeing your faces on the screen, I can tell that you're all fatigued from sitting here for the last number of hours and listening to this on. And God bless you all for it. It's an amazing effort. But why not pursue a hybrid method so more people can see the meetings, but also responding in more real time when the questions are asked and people can get the responses they receive. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Sorry. Sorry, Mr. Martin, I pushed a button too soon.
Okay. I don't know where I lost you, but thanks for everything. That's the.
So long. Just 2 points of clarification, Mayor. The bond is done. It is 2 bonds. The water bond is separate. Municipality goes out the bond for one item broken down into 4 different or 5 different or 6 different categories. You don't do a bond for each category. That's not the way the bonding council works. You bond one for the general municipal bonds, and you bond one for the water because it's separate. Debbie, could you add anything to that?
No, you're correct. They're 2 different funds. One is a general capital fund and one is the water capital fund. And you don't separate it. It all goes under one bond ordinance.
It's a budget-based bond, and your budget-based bond is supported by the documents contained within your finances. So that's that's part of the process. And relative to the radios, we talked about the radio trouble with the handheld radios. We're not replacing handheld radios. What we're trying to do is get more repeaters, get more coverage. It's a coverage issue. The radios are relatively new. So we need to increase coverage. We need to put in some repeaters in places. Like the school is an example. We need to put repeaters in there so that if they're in anywhere in those schools, they can communicate, because if you can imagine, if you're one end of the building and you have to get to the other so you can go out to your car so you can communicate, that's problematic. So it's not really an equipment per se handheld radio. It's the network tower to tower, so to speak. And I know I'm oversimplifying it. To be able to get the communication from the actual dispatch to the handheld. And that's all I have there.
Right. Is there anyone else?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Can I have a motion to close public?
McCracken, I'll make the motion to close public portion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McCracken?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Matty Landis?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
And Spear?
Yes.
Okay, members of the council, Councilwoman O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mayor, for finally letting me speak this evening. I want to agree with Robin Kennedy that I think we do the public a great disservice by not responding in real time to their comments during the public session. One of the people I wanted to respond to was our ex-mayor, Jim Martucci. It seems Jim is no longer in attendance. There are many people that at 8 o'clock this evening came to our meeting, voiced their concerns, and asked a response of this council, and you refused to let us answer them. So I hope they get the answers that we are now going to be able to provide. I want to start with taxes. I'm happy to say for the 3rd year in a row, the county taxes have not risen. Also, our New Jersey taxes have not risen, and we are going to have property taxpayers receive more aid. We are going to have a record pension payment and more funds for early voting. We are also getting a huge boost to special ed cost, where before the state only did 45% of the funding, they are bumping it up to 90%, which is a huge improvement considering that educating one special needs child can cost a municipality $120,000. In spite of the fact that the county and the state have been able to hold taxes steady, it's very disappointing that once again, Ringwood has not. In 2020, we saw a reduction in our recreational services. There were no town fireworks. And we saw a surge in real estate properties being updated, expanded, and renovated, increasing our tax rateables. Even the property that I've talked about in prior meetings on Valley Road and Longview has been totally renovated, and they're paying more taxes. We also added a previously tax exempt property. I don't think it was properly assessed when we did the budget, but the Friary sold for $4.5 million, adding that to our tax roll. In 2019, an election year, the majority decided to utilize Ford money to reduce our tax increase. It would have been a lot more burdensome if they hadn't used $3,417,000 to finally pay off the 2007 bond that they put out. Now we are seeing that we've increased taxes on our residents, and already you're going out to put the town in debt. I agree that all of these items are very, very important. And I know that the town has spent over the past few years chasing this high density housing dream, that you have spent over $350,000 on expenses to pursue that. And if the radios and the coverage for the police was so important, I really think that we should have been able to utilize Ford money to get that done immediately. To hear Scott read off the people that were left in the lurch because we didn't have this coverage when we had the money sitting in our account is despicable. As far as another issue that Robin Kennedy raised, the James Drive plant, Jim Martucci called in, and I commend him. He has been a steward of Skyline Lakes and the water quality there for many years, and he voted to do the Princeton study, and I'm glad he did because it's been a big asset to our community. However, I didn't get a chance to respond that I agree that this isn't something that every resident of Ringwood should be paying for. Scott told us that the rescue funds can be utilized for sewer treatment, and we're going to get $636,000, which would offset that cost. And I think that we should have that structured to be paid back by the sewer fees that those residents pay, similar to what we're doing with the lakes, because that would be fair to all the residents in town. If somebody's septic fails, and I've seen many of them fail in this town, there is no assistance forthcoming from this council to bond to help them replace it. And people have had to put off moving because they couldn't afford to replace their septic where their house was sold. But the cost of replacing their septic was too onerous that they were forced to stay in their house. And unfortunately, the town was still going to have that failed septic leaking into our lakes. And the one I'm referencing was on Skyline Lakes Drive. So I think that we really shouldn't have bonded all these together. I think it was political, I'm sorry to say. But the fact that you put the police and the library in with the James plant seems a little suspect to me. I recall in the last election, you tried to paint the Democrats as not supporting the police. Nothing could be further from the truth. And the fact that we have money sitting in account that could be utilized to get this coverage done yesterday, I think it's terrible that we have waited so long. I would like to see the town manager structure something for the James Drive plan, which does address utilizing the rescue funds and finding a way to pay back from the money that our residents up there already are paying in sewer fees. Trying to think if there was anything else. You know, it's hard to remember everything, Mayor Schaefer, from 8 o'clock in the evening till now, to go back and to address all the things I wanted to address. Not having a voice and not being able to respond to our residents is very disconcerting. Thank you.
Councilman Ferretti.
Thank you. I do agree with what Kathy was saying relative to wanting to see another plan relative to using the money that is now or will soon be available in the new plan, the rescue plan. And as far as the radios, we have the money for that, and it should be, as I stated at the last meeting, it should be a grant that's used for police radios or whatever these are, repeaters. And, you know, that's the thing about Ringwood. We don't deserve to go get a loan and then have to pay it back. We deserve to get county money, state money, and national money to pay for things like that. These big expenses, millions of dollars worth of loans, bonds, to get things that we could have money given to us from higher up is silly. That's not the direction this town should take. I think we're better than that, and we should move forward in the direction of doing that. So it's never, see, we have a vote for a reason, right? Because we could just come to the realization and admit, you know what? This isn't right. We got to change direction. There's a better way. And that is exactly what happened. So when we have things, I don't need to like restate things that have already been said. I agree. James Drive is important. I don't believe that it's failing, by the way. It make it seem like the sky is falling, but yes, it needs to be addressed because regulations change and we need to do it. If we can't cover it on the rescue plan, we should get a bond for James Drive. You know, and those people should be responsible for paying it back with whatever the price is, $1,200 a year per household, and make sure that it goes into the right account. Where am I? You know, we have multiple accounts, like for example, that Ford money, where I don't know, I'm not sure if that number that Kathy said was correct, because it was, I believe, less than $3 million that was spent from that account. It's around 2.9 or just under 3 million. So there should be money, pardon me, to cover things like $476,000 in roads. We shouldn't have to go get a loan for that. Plus, a grant should be paying us back from the county or state. So I feel strongly about that. And that's the only way that a town like Ringwood in the under the Highlands Act can be sustainably a place where people can continue to live, you know, as they retire. So that said, I think we did the right thing last meeting, and we need to move forward in the right direction. Pardon me. Looking forward to garage sale weekend with everybody. Cleanup day also. Guys, please be aware, obviously COVID is ramping up in many areas. I'm glad it's not here. Let's keep it that way, right? And my last thing is bike safety. Every time I turn around, I do live in Erskine where there's a lot of kids on bikes, but boy, oh boy, more than ever this year, I've been seeing kids, adults on bicycles and jogging. Please be careful out there. That's all I have tonight. Thank you very much.
Councilman Bolton. Muted.
Yeah, muted. And probably for the good of the community that I'm muted. I don't know that I have anything constructive to add at this point that wouldn't be repetitive. So I'll just wish everybody a good night and a safe sleep.
Thank you. Councilwoman Landis.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say, everybody, community members, please remember to watch speeds around lakes in Stonetown. Our residents are really out and about, children are out and about on bikes, and we have a responsibility to keep one another safe. So many comments tonight and the past month about the bond ordinance not passing. So I'm concerned about the very serious repercussions to our residents in our borough. I heard our CFO and borough manager both say they need direction because this has created a mess. Councilman Ferretti, you just said that you were happy with that you still feel confident in that vote. But I would say that if you feel confident in that, that's problematic because we spent 2 years in a finance committee planning this whole entire thing out, a finance committee that you were a member of, where nothing was addressed different. This was the plan. And then to blindside your fellow council members, to blindside a community after 2 years of planning with a borough manager, with a CFO, $10,000 to the bond council, an introduction the month before, which was unanimously supported by an entire council, with no council members contacting the CFO or the borough manager to discuss concerns prior to the meeting, and then merely blindsiding a council and blindsiding a community. I guess my question is, how do we move forward? I would like to know from the borough manager, have council members reached out to you about making this right for our community? Because this is a nightmare that we are faced with right now that was created. And so I guess that's my bit on that. Councilwoman O'Keefe, you're praising the community for holding taxes steady, right? And I'm sitting here looking at my tax bill, and of the $20,000 that I pay a year in taxes, my county taxes and my municipal taxes are exactly in line with one another. I get a lot from my municipality. I get nothing from my county. So I would take a little bit of issue with that.
Councilwoman Landis, I would say that you see.
I'm speaking. I have.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to correct you. You received extraordinary aid this year from the county.
That's fine. I have the floor right now.
Okay.
And then I know, in public comment, Mrs. Kennedy had said, basically, why is it fair to pay for things that don't necessarily pertain to us? But, I guess for me, that answer is really simple. We're a community, and we're looking at grants, Princeton Hydro grant that is the community pays for it, and then some of it gets reimbursed. There's different the bikeable, walkable paths, all those things. Living in Stonetown, I won't be able to use those things, right? A grant from or finding out from Princeton Hydro what is going to make our lake health good. That's not anything that pertains to me in Stonetown, but you know why it's still important to me? Because it pertains to all the residents who use it. And I love this community. And so, that's kind of the way it goes. There are times where we contribute to things that don't necessarily at that moment pertain to us, but we're a community. And to me, it's pretty much plain and simple. But that's it. The bond ordinance has me. I've been losing sleep over this one. This is upsetting. I don't understand how you blindside people. It's not okay. And to think that you'd still vote the same way or not do anything different is problematic, because the right thing to do is, if you had a problem with it, guys don't sit there for 2 years in a bipartisan committee and not say anything and just let it go through. So I did ask Mr. Heck if people have reached out to you about making this right for our community, because I know I have, and I'm sitting here losing sleep over how we make this right. But if all I keep hearing is, we need a path forward, and it's now a month later, and if you're still saying we need a path forward, then that's still problematic in and of itself.
To answer your question, the members that opposed the bond ordinance, none of them have reached out to me I don't know if they've reached out to Debbie, but they have not reached out to me to talk about. So it would be hard for me to create a plan when Councilman O'Keefe, Ferretti, and Bolton have not told me what their issues are, or how, if they don't support their own plan, how is my plan going to work? That's my concern. So no, they haven't, but I'm hopeful that we will be able to come up with something so we can have a path forward.
I'm hopeful too. Thank you. That's it. That's all I had.
Deputy Mayor Kraken. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I just want to touch on the sign ordinance real quick. we had worked on it. So at the direction of the mayor, we got together and we had a very good discussion, very fruitful. We've basically all agreed upon the fact that content-based regulation must be avoided due to Supreme Court rulings. And that's because of right of free speech. But at the same time, that doesn't prevent municipalities from regulating signs in a way that protects public safety and serve legitimate aesthetic and planning objectives. So basically, after that initial meeting, it became almost impossible to get the sign committee together again. I couldn't get the other members to meet with me. Mr. Klimek and I, we talked, we had some discussion, and we decided to forward our findings from the sign committee from that initial discussion to the planning board so they can update the ordinance. Mr. Klimek, I can yield to you now if you want to expand and clarify a little bit about all the findings that we did turn over to the planning board.
You're muted, Mr. Klimek.
Yes, I was authorized earlier this week, I think, by Councilman McCracken to get in touch with the planning board. With the committee, I had made recommendations as to how the sign ordinance should be modified in light of Supreme Court decisions, which have stated that municipalities have to be very careful about putting limits on expression. Expression isn't only, vote for Smith for governor. Expression is also, I support a certain policy. I do not support a certain policy. Our signs cannot be content-based. That violates the United States Constitution as enunciated in recent Supreme Court cases. The committee is, by the way, bipartisan, did agree with that. So what I did is I proposed changes in our ordinance, okay? Mr. McCracken just authorized me to get in touch with the planning board, which I will this week, because what we would request them to do is review what we have done. Also, to come up with standards as to location of signs, size of signs, how signs should differ in various districts, et cetera, et cetera. Our ordinance hasn't been touched. That sign ordinance hasn't been touched in many, many years. And it's time to bring it up to date in view of how the Constitution, the United States Constitution has been interpreted. Okay, I know that sounds somewhat abstract, but it is real. And we are striving to comply with our constitutional obligation. Yet we have to have, we are entitled to have certain limits on locations, on size, on aesthetics, et cetera. But the Supreme Court has made it clear that content-based signs, that is, if you base a sign on the message, they are highly suspect. And we are working on that.
Okay. That is Mayor.
That's all I have. Everyone stay safe and I'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Councilman Spear.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. There's a lot to comment on tonight, but I don't think that's necessary. To call the exercise that we had to go through to satisfy the affordable housing lawsuits, a dream of high density housing in Ringwood. That's silly and pointless. That totally misses the point of what we're doing here. And the councilwoman's comments subsequent to that, and when we voted for that resolution, I think that was last month or 2 months ago, pretty much tells you exactly that there's no appreciation on that side of the aisle for what we had to do and take care of that type of business. Also, what I just heard just now, that's getting a little old. If we think that there are alternate funding sources from higher levels of government, please point them out. Let's sit down. Let's pull it all out and talk about it. Let's grab it, find it, identify it, say what you want to do with it, and let's sit down and work it out. We can do this. but please come and identify it. You know, we learned, I learned a few years back, we hired a grants person sometime in, I don't know, back in 2010, 2012 time frame, just trying to find more grant opportunities. There's not much out there. What I learned at that point was that people do not want to grant you money for you to do what you want to do. They will grant you money to do what they want you to do, but it really won't cover your expenses and the things you need done. So please, if you think there's county grants, if you think there's state grants, let's talk about them. Let's sit in the committee and knock it around. It takes some investigation. It's very difficult to do in this type of environment, in this type of public hearing. At one public meeting a month, we're never going to get it done. So please, I invite you to please come with that kind of stuff. And there was something else, but I can let it slide for now because I'm sure it'll come back up at a later date. So good night, all. Thank you.
Okay, I just have a few things. First of all, just going back to Ms. Peterson's comment about our council meetings. Just today, Dr. Fauci mentioned about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that may not be good enough for this Delta variant. So we have to wait and see what's going to happen in the next couple of months. We don't want to have our cases get any higher than they are. We don't want to have any other people die. And there are some people on our council that are compromised. So, and the public that comes to our meetings. So we have to wait and see on that. Speaking on Mrs. Canetti's comments about not that all the things she has to pay for and why should she? I have no children, not by choice, but I have no children, but I still pay school taxes because I think it's very important for our community and for the existence of our community, our beautiful community. So we want it to be in good shape. So all aspects of whatever is done, whether we get those or not, we should be glad that we have them and we're able to have a town that's in good shape. Also be careful of driving around the lakes, as Councilman Ferretti said, a lot of children out on their bikes, going to swimming lessons and whatever and games. And please be careful because a lot of them I see today are very little and they can barely ride a bike. So, and they're out in the middle sometimes and cars coming around, those cars will never stop in time. So please be careful. One last thing I have, something very nice. The 14U Lakeland Junior Girls Softball All-Star Team won the Little League State Championship this past Sunday, July 18th, with a nail-biting 3-2 win over Little Ferry in Wallington, New Jersey. This team is made up of 12 girls from Ringwood and Wanacue who were selected to this all-star team after their rec season that was run through Ringwood Recreation with support from Wanacue Recreation and the Lakeland Junior Rec Softball Board led by President Cheryl Bosalas. This 14U team first won its countywide district title against Pompton Lakes at Back Beach on July 3rd, then won the regional section title against Morris Plains, Hanover in Morris Plains on July 10th, capped by a 24-6 victory to become the first Lakeland softball team ever to advance to the state championship tournament. At the state tournament this past weekend, our Lakeland girls won their first game, 14-3, then faced the best pitcher they've seen all season, but managed to win the championship game 3-2 over Little Ferry. This Lakeland team loves to play small ball and fittingly shows their hustle. The winning run scored from second base when a ground ball to the shortstop was thrown to first and the runner came all the way around to score and put Lakeland ahead by 1 run. Dozens of Ringwood and Wanacue residents showed up in Wallington. Nearly 100 people traveled there to support them. including many members of Lakeland's 10U and 12U softball teams. The players who made up the team are as follows. And if I pronounce their names wrong, I apologize. Thalia Bennett, Kira Basalis, Sammy Biney, Lexi Callahan, Ella Dubonis, Kira Federici, Meredith Healy, Emily Kemper-Riedel, Julia McCormick, Olivia McCormick, Victoria Sabatelli, and Keelan Trussman. The team manager was Mike McCormick, along with the coaches Lisa Healy and Frank Sabatelli. Little League presented the team with a large 6 foot by 4 foot banner for all tournament championships, as well as a large championship ring and massive 46-inch state championship trophy. And pictures and videos can be found at the Lakeland Junior Rec Softball Facebook page. So I'd like to congratulate these girls for this, from their historic team, and recognize them as the absolute best team in our state, and thankfully they're ours. So congratulations to all of them. And if nothing else, I'd like to say good night and have a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, before we adjourn, Jennifer Shue wasn't able to attend tonight, and she did have a green team announcement. I totally forgot about it, but they are collecting water bottles for a project that the green team is working on. Jennifer will be at the farmers market this Saturday morning. So anybody that has been collecting regular 16-ounce water bottles, they can drop them off to help the green team achieve the project that they are currently working on. And also at the last meeting, Mayor, you had said that you were putting together a task force and you were naming people to serve on it. You were going to pick somebody from each department, the EDC, the Environmental Committee, the Emergency Services, having to do with high density housing and the impact it will have on the character of the town. I was wondering if you put that together yet, and if you could tell us who the names are who will be serving.
So I will get to that at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, I have a second. Roll call.
Mayor Schaefer, Deputy Mayor McCracken,
Yes.
Council Members Bolton,
Yes.
Peretti,
Yes.
Manuel Landis,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Night.